Following program contains language and subject matter that you may consider unsuitable for children. Parental discretion is advised.
Greetings, Earthling. His Highness the Jackal.
The Jackal.
I'm going to pass the reins to Mr. Jackal, the new king of radio.
I think Jackal's Latino. I'm not sure, but he'll give it to you good.
The Jackal.
Welcome, everybody, to Inside the Jackals Head, back on live on PSN Radio. It is October 20th, the year of the Golden Goose, 2019, or as President Trump would call this, the year the swamp ate itself. My God, did you hear that audio? And those are some folks that are protesting the president. Oh, goodness. Now, before I tell you about my guest tonight, I wanted to check some stories out with you. That in itself is a crazy story, and it's posted on my website, that audio. If you want to check it out in full length, it's about a 17-minute long video. It's crazy. The left has gone nuts. We're going to go over some great news tonight, some not so great news, some fun entertainment news, and then I'm going to tell you about my guest. First, let me run down some of the things we're going to go over in the news in a couple minutes. First, father of 8 invents an electric car battery that could drive you about 1,500 miles, everybody, without charging it. I'm going to read that article in a minute. Also, the movie Joker setting box office records, and we're going to discuss that. I saw it. It's an amazing movie. It really is. It's a movie that sticks with you. You have to see it more than once to really get everything that happens. But also, we're going to go over some stuff with George Clooney, who got dragged into the Jeffrey Epstein scandal. And for some sad news, Alex Trebek has only but a few days to live. And Alex Trebek from the Jeopardy game show. Also, this past week, Congressman Elijah Cummings of Baltimore passed away. He was 68. We're going to go over that in a second and what that means for the country. Also, this is an incredible report. It's live on my website. Trump fires back at ABC reporter and for being deceptive. I have audio of that. And also Project Veritas. You got to check this out on the website. Also, CNN insider blows the whistle on the network president Jeff Zucker. And I'm talking about CNN's Jeff Zucker, who apparently has a grudge against the president. Going to love that report. And last but not least in the news, Rand Paul explains, and I have an audio, how Mr. President 45, Trump did not give Turkey permission to invade. And that's from Rand Paul Jr., not Senior, but Junior. Not Senior, Junior. And very cool audio clip. I'm going to play that in a minute. Let's see. Also tonight we have as our guest, now we're going to go and give him a quick mention. Mr. Dave Emmons is going to be on the show. And Dave is a very interesting gentleman. Now, I know the show is catering more and more to other topics, not just UFO related or ufology related topics, but Dave Emmons, he claims that he has been training in top secret nuclear weapons in the military intelligence and did not like constant military intelligence interviews and did not like the pressure that he was subjected to and stuff. He claimed that in his personal life, which has been surrounded by the paranormal, Dave and his wife lead a members-only ET discussion group from their home in Washington State, a home that not only hosts where members relate their encounters, but a home that claims ET and encounters happen as well. And he's going to join us to talk about his experiences. In fact, me and him share a similar event. As you know, I have a long history with the whole topic of UFOs from not only this show, but Skywatchers Radio, which is, by the way, going to come back soon. Working on the website, skywatchersradio.com. We'll be live in 2020. Shout-outs to Alan, who's, I'm sure, listening in patiently, waiting for the return. Now, let's see, what else? So that's going to be in a couple of minutes. That's going to be at the end of the hour. We're going to have Dave on with us. And that's going to be for the entire second hour. I'm really looking forward to having him on because, like I said, I'm into the whole abduction part and sightings and getting first-hand accounts. And he's done a lot of research. I've been doing a ton of back homework on him, and I think you, the audience, are really going to enjoy listening to Dave give you, his synopsis of, what his backstory is, and we're going to get into some of, the actual sightings and what he saw. And like I said again, we're going to talk about the one that correlates to the one I had as a kid. Now, moving on, I have also Samaritan of the Week here on the show. Yeah. There we go. Good job, Pete. Thank you. All right, Pete. All right, hey, Pete, cut it off, man. All right. Thank you, Pete. All right, the Samaritan of the Week is, let's see, this is actually going out for two people. So it's a co-shared Samaritan of the Week. As some of you might be aware, I had an accident in April, and I'll be requiring a scary back surgery to fix a broken back. That's right, as I sit here and I do this show, I have a broken back, folks. And while I rehab, I really had nobody to take my dog, which is really my late mother's dog, as you that might follow me on Facebook might have been seeing. I put some posts up trying to see if I could have somebody help take him in, basically. I made some calls this week to see if someone could help. I found a very nice lady at an animal clinic here in the city I'm staying out temporarily, and she recommended another lady who could help, and it turns out that they were both just amazing people. They went, immediately to try to help out, and I want to really thank them both for going out of their way to really make the the transition very quick. In fact, my mom's dog Tito, which is now taking a good nap after he ate a whole lot of food today. It felt kind of sad because it was almost like one of those things like he was on death row and we gave him the last meal, and now he's going to a better place, right? I guess you could say that. I mean, he was very happy before when my mom was with him all the time because she was at home. Unfortunately for myself, when I tried to be there, and I took care of him since 2016 when she passed. With my back surgery, I'm going to be not. There's just no way that I'm going to be able to take care of him. So, now I didn't catch the name of the first young lady who helped me out. She did give me her name, but it's one of the things I'm drawing a blank on. But the place she worked at is the Aussie Animal Hospital, and I want to give them a shout out. The Aussie Animal Hospital down here in Florida, and actually, like I said, she was very, very nice, and she sent me on my way to the path to meet the other lady named Riza. I got her name, Pete. Yeah, the second lady. Her name, we registered her name. The name is Riza. Actually, she's a very, very nice lady, amazing folks. Bryce found a lovely family who's going to take Tito in and give him a nice home. So, there you go. As I go in for my surgery, and then I have rehab for post-surgery, which is going to take me out for about maybe 4 to 5 months to recover. It's not going to be anything pleasant, I'm not looking forward to it. But if I want to walk like a man when I'm 45 and 50, I have to have the surgery according to my surgeon. So it's Riza and the nurse at the animal clinic, the Aussie Animal Clinic. Round of applause. Thank you, Pete. Thank you. Right on cue. Good job. All right, that's enough, buddy. Come on. How long are you going to play this?
30, man.
No, we don't have time for that. All right, good job, Pete. Very nice. Good job. So there you go, 2 Samaritans of the week. Lovely ladies. I want to, again, give them a special thank you for finding Tito a home. And it's a sad but very happy night at the same time here at where I'm crashing out. Sad because, he's been with me since he's been a puppy, and I'm going to miss him for sure. You do grow attached to animals, and I'm very sad about not having him around, but I'm very happy for the fact that, according to Riza, the home he's going to is a very good home, and the folks are going to give him all the attention he needs. And he's a great dog, let me tell you. He's, again, taking a nap. I have a whole folder of photos and videos of him, which at least I'll have a memory of raising him for a certain period of time. The way I look at it is I raised a child. Now he's going out to the world, and he's joining other people's families, and he's doing something different. But I feel like I've completed a mission, almost like Yoda passing the training to Obi-Wan. Throw a little Star Wars reference in there. And moving on from the Special Samaritan of the Week tribute, I got a couple really funny clips, guys. Actually, I teased at this, I think a week or 2 ago, where I'm going to have a segment called Only in America. And I have audio clips of both, and one of them is only in Florida, and the other one's only in Ohio. Now, the Florida one is cops tell a Florida man to stop calling 911 about his stolen weed. That's right, folks. I didn't misread that. You heard me right. Only in Florida, you would think you would hear something as crazy as somebody calling 911 because his roommate stole his weed. Now, check out the audio. This is very brief. It's the actual police getting the call. You gotta listen to this. It's just...
All right, so I just received a call. The guy's calling in saying his roommate stole his weed, $20 worth, and he's upset. So he keeps calling 911. So I got to give him a call to tell him to stop calling about his weed. And going back to the guy calling in to report his drugs stolen, I called him to let him know not to call the sheriff's office and report his drugs. And he started to freak out a little bit on the phone, and then hung up on me shortly after.
So, now, the moment of silence there was because that's a facepalm piece of audio, guys. That is where we're at right now in society, where people call 911 because their roommate stole their ganja. And it's not just happening in Florida. This kind of mental breakdown, sickness, retardation, whatever you want to call it, is happening in other parts of the country. As you guys know, we've been linked because of the chump lames, or La China lames, as I like to call them, who used to play for the Miami Heat. We've been linked with Ohio, Cleveland for some time now. The Marlins beat them in the World Series in '97. The Miami-Cleveland thing goes back several decades. And not to outdo that kind of retarded clip where a man calls 911, and you heard the officer there taking in the report and talking about how he basically told the guy, stop calling in. Okay? Just don't. We don't want to. Why would you call in and tell the police that your roommate stole your weed? First of all, that is the dumbest thing I ever heard. But as you heard the cop there, like say, tell him stop calling in about that. I mean, this is 911 emergency. Yeah, how stupid are people nowadays to where they actually call 911 and this is what they're reporting? But again, this is not just the sickness of a Floridian mind. No. This is spread out, and it's madness all over the place. This one is from Ohio. Listen to this. This is really, really good.
Police, this is Cindy.
Hi, I need to do a complaint about 2 Sharonville cops. They stole my fucking weed last night.
Okay, let me have you talk to a supervisor.
All right.
Hold on just a moment.
Hello?
Hi, is this a sheriff?
This is Sergeant Mark Duddleson with the Sharonville Police. How can I help you?
All right, my name's Bill. I had 2 cops come here last night and steal my fucking weed, and I want it back.
Okay, what address are you talking about?
Yeah, I was staying at a hotel last night at the time. My wife had some problem. They had to call them, and my wife had my weed in their purse, and the motherfucking cops took it. It was only like 4 grams, but it was really good weed. It was only like 4 grams, but it was like, prestige weed. And the motherfuckers took it. And from what I know, 100 grams is cool, right? Or am I wrong?
You are wrong.
I'm wrong.
What do you mean by that? Do you think it's cool? Where did you get that information
What are you
from?
talking about? 100 grams is legal. Am I wrong?
No, it's not.
What county is this?
This is in Hamilton County.
Hamilton County, 100 grams is legal.
Okay, well, I mean, it's not. I'm just here to tell you that it's not.
What do you mean it's not, dude? Where you been the past 2 months?
Okay.
2 months ago, it got past 100 grams. You guys don't take it, no ticket. I know I'm right here, dude. Don't try to talk to me like I'm dumb.
Okay, Matthew,
I'm right here.
if you'd like to come down and file a complaint against these officers, you can do it in person.
No bullshit. I want my weed back. It was only 4 grams, and it happened at like 2:30 last night. Did those motherfuckers turn in any weed? Did they say any weed? I guarantee you, they put it right in their fucking pockets.
Okay, well,
man, I'll take this as far as you want to go. If you think you're going to me around with this bullshit, dude, you're wrong. I'm just going to go over your head. I want my weed back. They didn't turn it in, did they? Did any cops turn in any weed last night around 2:33 a.m.? I guarantee you they didn't. They stole my weed. It was only 4 grams, and I'm allowed to have up to 100 grams. I know the law. I know my rights.
Okay.
And if you're not going to help me out, I'm going to go over your head.
Can you stop talking for a second? Okay. What hotel were you at?
I don't know. Some hotel in Sharonville. But I woke up in the morning. I asked my wife where my weed was, and she said the cops came and took it. It was only 4 grams, but it was good weed. And those motherfuckers stole it.
So the police officers took it from your wife?
Yeah.
Okay.
And my wife said to them, she said to them, no, 100 grams is legal. And they said, and they kind of laughed, tell it to the judge kind of bullshit.
Okay, what's your wife's name?
Hey, I'm not trying to get all this information out, man. I just want my weed back.
You called me. You are complaining.
I know, dude, but I know how it all works, and I feel like you're just trying to trap me right now. And I'm not falling into that game, man. All I want is my weed back. Can you at least answer me a question? Did them 2 cops that were in Sharonville last night, did they turn in any weed?
What's your wife's name?
Marilyn Manson is my wife's name.
Okay.
But anyway, back to my point and why I called you for your help.
Well,
where's my
I'm trying to
weed?
get you help.
Did any Sharonville cops turn in any weed last night?
Hey, how do you think it's possible that you call me and be completely unreasonable, and then I can't have a conversation with you and you expect any kind of result?
I'm not trying to be unreasonable to you.
Okay, what's your wife's name?
Answer me the simple question.
What's your wife's
name? Did any Sharonville cops turn in any weed last night? They didn't. They took my weed and they stuck it in their pockets.
Okay, what's your wife's name?
My wife said it was some young guy and some bald fat that came here and took it. They didn't give me no ticket.
Hey.
Illegal. They said they would tell it to the judge kind of bullshit. Where's my weed ticket then? If it's not legal. They took my but anyway, I can tell this is a losing situation. I just want you to look into it. Last night, 2:30, there were 2 cops here that stole my weed. And that's it. You have a good evening, sir. Thank you.
All right.
Idiot! God, so stupid.
My goodness, there you go. That is a sickness, folks. I don't want to blame, the plan itself. That's not fair. But you got to admit, these guys have smoked themselves retarded. Like, I never thought I'd say that, because, I have no issues if people out there, smoke ganja. That's great. More power to you. But those, two individuals, the one who called 911 and the Ohio guy, they called 911. They're, the Florida and Ohio too, really should take a break for a while. When you're calling 911 and you're ranting and raving about people stealing your weed, there's an issue. Especially if there's cops involved, just, at some point you just let the shit go and move on. Like, I'm sure we could find more weed where that came from. And, you could just go over there and say, hey, man, that's right, just hook me up, man. Come on. And then, you move on with your life. I mean, I have no idea that we're in strange times, folks. Strange times. Look at that audio I was playing earlier with the clueless protesters that want to impeach the president for absolutely no idea, and no reason, and no collusion, and no anything. I mean, the media report not only did it exonerate the president, they found nothing. And now they wanted to throw him under the bus because he wanted to save American taxpayers even more money with the G7 thing next year, where they're going to host that thing down here in the Doral area. Of course, the left made a big stink about it, and they just announced now, today I think, earlier this morning, that they're not going to host it there anymore. They're going to actually find a new spot. Because the left went ape nuts over the announcement that they're going to host the G7, maybe becomes the G8 if Russia gets in there next year at his resort, which was going to be at 50% less cost than the next best resort that they could have in, or the next best place that they could have this thing in. Think about that. The left rather spend 50% more in cost for the G7 summit next year than do it in a property owned by the president, who's not taking a salary. He's not made a penny from being president. Okay, as commander-in-chief, he's the first one who's never taken a paycheck. It's been donated to charities and whatnot, and that's fact. That's not me making it up because I'm a fan or I voted for the guy. No, that's a fact. All right, there's other facts, but that's a very important one to keep in mind. And also, this event is going to cost, or would have cost, 50% less than whatever the second best was. And there's a whole controversy about that. So to avoid any issues, Trump announced that they're not going to host it there anymore. So they're going to have it out somewhere else. They're going to look out for that. But Rand Paul did something really interesting. And again, this is Rand Paul Jr., and this is part of the news I wanted to get to. He was on Glenn Beck's show. And he talked about how the president did not give Turkey the okay to go in and start bombing the living crap out of Syria, out of the Kurds, because that's also rhetoric that's been going out there from the Democratic Congress left. And I wanted to lead off with that piece of audio. Rand Paul, check this out, explaining why exactly it is that we're being lied to on this entire issue, because it's funny because everything this president does, whether it's this stuff in Syria, which, my take on that whole thing is some of the listeners here who might have heard me talk about this. My whole take is we had to pull out at some point, and when Turkey is telling you, hey, we're going in whether you're there or not, and you only have 28 soldiers in that region, you back up, because if not, guess what? This becomes Benghazi number 2. And if he leaves them in, they die. He gets criticized. He takes them out. They don't die. He still gets criticized. So there's no win at all. Either way, they flip it. And I'm going to talk about that in a second in the article with Project Veritas. But listen to this. We're going to lead off with Rand Paul. Check this out here.
The president has allowed our troops to be withdrawn from Syria, and I'm really torn on this because these guys we were in bed with, they were corrupt from the beginning. When John McCain went over with Hillary Clinton, with Barack Obama's blessings to embrace these people, I ranted every night. These are not good people. We should not be over and inserting ourselves in with these people especially. This is not going to work out well. Now the president pulls people out and we have this mess on our hand, but I don't know how else to get out of there other than just to get out of there.
Well, people need to remember the beginning of the Syrian war, and for years and years it was Lindsey Graham and Hillary Clinton, both on the same side, both supporting Sunni extremists against Assad. Now, Assad is no angel, but most of the Christians in the country actually sided with Assad and had been a minority religion protected by Assad's government for decades. But the Sunni extremists that we supported, or our government supported, Hillary Clinton and Lindsey Graham, if those people had taken over, my fear is that their ideology would have been closer to the ISIS caliphate than it would have been to anything the West has known. But it's a very complicated situation. Turkey is misbehaving in the region, buying Russian missiles, etc. They are an authoritarian government and a NATO ally. By the NATO alliance, we're supposed to defend them against attack. Their current allies are somebody called the Free Syrian Army. That's who's doing a lot of these battles within Syria. It's a militia, but we were allied with the Free Syrian Army for 7 years. They're fighting against the Kurds. The Syrian Kurds, their political ideology is socialism. In fact, the Kurdish Workers' Party is socialist and terrorist within Turkey. Interestingly, the Iraqi Kurds, who have been our friends and have some autonomy in Iraq, don't like the Syrian Kurds and actually have an arrangement with Turkey where they've turned over Kurdish Worker Party terrorists back to Turkey. The Iraqi Kurds have a good relationship with Turkey currently. There's 1,800 Turkish businesses in Iraqi Kurdistan. That's the model we should be looking for. And I think the irony of this is, if you care about the Kurds, it actually may turn out that in the last 24 hours there is an alliance between Assad and the Kurds developing, and that maybe the Syrians can convince the Turks that they will control their country. There will be no Kurdish incursions into Turkey, but there need be no Turkish incursions into Syria. And maybe there could be a development of a semi-autonomous region. Assad needs allies. If he could get the Kurds to be allies and say, we are Syrian Kurds, we have a province up here, you leave us largely alone, kind of like a federal model like we have, maybe there could be some peace. What's been preventing peace for years now is the neocons have said, we have to topple Assad and we have to have regime change, and nobody would talk to Assad. In the end, I think Assad is there to stay, at least for a while, and needs to be part of any kind of peace plan.
But you would admit that this is really ugly right now.
It is, and I think it's also something we had no control over. So the Turks called up President Trump and said, we're coming one way or another, and President Trump looked at his generals and said, we have 50 people there. Would it be smart to leave 50 people in the wave of a Turkish invasion? The mainstream media is pointing it out, he gave them the green light and said, come on, we'll get out of the way. I don't think that's the way it developed. I think the way it developed is the Turks have been chomping at the bit for a year or two to come in and wipe out the people who they believe are their enemies, and some of whom probably are terrorists. They've been wanting to wipe them out. And I think the discussion was finally Erdogan says, we are coming one way or another. And then the president had to decide whether or not leaving 50 soldiers in the middle of a war was a good idea. The president also said from the very beginning, that his goal was to defeat ISIS. ISIS is defeated. ISIS holds no territory. Is the ideology still there? Are there still some people? Sure, there always will be. But ISIS is defeated. That was our goal. Our goal was not to make Syria a country. Our goal was not to give the Syrian Kurds a country. Our goal was to defeat ISIS. And so I think we did accomplish that goal, and we shouldn't change the goal.
There you go. Now, when you listen to that audio, there's a part in there that he actually gets wrong. And he said that there were 50 people in there. It turns out there were actually 28 soldiers in there. Not 50 of our guys, so it was 28. So it was a lot less than they initially reported. And thanks to us pulling them out, they're now all going to be okay, and they're going to enjoy, this month alive. So, to avoid Benghazi number 2, the president pulled them out and saved their lives. And there was no green light given to anybody. Turkey was coming one way or the other, and they weren't giving a turkey leg up to anybody. And I've been saying that on the show. This is, not, for me it's nothing new, but I wanted to have an audio clip of somebody that people know. Rand Paul, you know him. And there you go. He broke it down better than I probably could ever break it down. And, again, what did he say? The president had a conversation with Turkey. Turkey told him, hey, we're coming whether you like it or not. So move out the way, guy. I guess that's how Turkish people speak. And the president said, listen, don't do it. And then, of course, that letter came out where the president gave him a stern warning about doing this. But, again, we're over there fighting their wars. Supposedly, for 10 years now? In 10 years, you're telling me they could not stand on their own. What the hell have we been doing over there? Billions of dollars have been going to the Kurds and to the Syrians in that part of the world to, get them on their feet militarily, economically. We spent a lot of money and gave them a lot of weaponry. And as soon as, we moved 28 soldiers, you're telling me they cannot protect themselves? In a decade, what the hell have they been doing? Where's that money going? I mean, these are questions that need to be asked. And, nobody asks these things. CNN is not asking. And I know why. Because there's, negative Trump all the time. And that goes back to the website. Here we go. If you go to angelespino.com, that's my main website. Go down on the left side and you're going to see the Project Veritas stuff in there. If you have not checked out that audio, my goodness, listen to it. The fake news is all orchestrated again by Jeff Zucker from CNN. He has a personal grudge. And let me set it up for you when you go over this so you kind of understand what's going on and why this entire fake news thing has been happening and why they're so negative on this president. It's very simple. This goes back, a decade, I think, with The Apprentice. Trump, of course, had the #1 TV show on TV, and guess who the producer was? Jeff Zucker, right? And for years, Trump had the #1 show, made him very wealthy. And then Trump had to leave the show because he did 10 seasons. A lot of, shows, they run their course after 5, 6 seasons. Some of the best shows last 8, 9, 10 seasons. They tried replacing him with Arnold Schwarzenegger, which flopped. And Mr. Schwarzenegger said, I'll be back to movies because this is not very good for my career. First Maria, and now this is not good. I got to get to the chopper and get out of here. And he left. That's probably the worst Arnold you're ever going to hear, by the way. And she'll never do that again.
Bye.
No, right? Yeah, no, I don't think so. And so Arnold failed.
Bye.
And that was the end of Arnold Schwarzenegger's time on El Apprentice. So with that said, the show flopped, failed, and went out of the way. And then Jeff Zucker started working directly with CNN, became president. Now he runs the network. And Project Veritas has a whistleblower, right? We know how Congress loves the whistleblowers. And he came forward because he was disgusted by what was happening in the network. And he actually catches Jeff Zucker not just directing traffic on what the anchors should, highlight or going through regular, information that they should be putting out there. No. It's very damning information for CNN. Because here we have the president saying, listen, we got to go on Trump, 24/7. It's going to be negative Trump. Trump. Impeachment. Whatever the narrative is, we go with that 24/7. Always negative. And then he slanders Fox News, which I think there's a lawsuit now pending between those two. And this is blowing up, and it's taken a grassroots for it to blow up because the mainstream is not, they're not going to cover this. CNN is not going to bury themselves. So Project Veritas took to Twitter, and they've been posting this stuff, and I got it on the website. For those who can't find it on Twitter, very simple. Go to the website angelespino.com. That's my name. It's right on the post on the left-hand side. If you scroll down, you'll see the entire thing. All the videos, pictures, all the information is right there. It's amazing stuff. Again, going back to just how awful things are. Now, this week also Trump fires back at an ABC reporter for deceptive questions, and you got to hear this audio. And the question was very deceptive, and it deals with something that Trump took offense to, and he really put this person in his place. Not only that, he put the entire network in their place, and this is great audio. Check this out.
All you have seen, ISIS prisoners freed, all the humanitarian disaster, you don't have any regret for giving Erdogan the green light to invade?
I didn't give him a green light.
Well, did you tell him?
That's
did he
the
defy
same thing
you?
as you just, when you make a statement like that, it's so deceptive. Just the opposite of a green light. First of all, we had virtually no soldiers there. They were mostly gone. Just a tiny little group. And they would have been in harm's way. You have a massive army on the other side of the border. But more importantly, I didn't give him a green light. And if anybody saw the letter, which can be released very easily if you'd like, I could certainly release it. But I wrote a letter right after that conversation, a very powerful letter. There was never given a green light. They've been wanting to do that for years, and frankly, they've been fighting for many, many years. And when you ask a question like that, it's very deceptive, John. It's almost as deceptive as you showing all of the bombings taking place in Syria, and it turned out that the bombing that you showed on television took place in Kentucky. So, and I'm not even sure that ABC apologized for that, but certainly it was a terrible thing. I'm looking at this, I say, wow, that's pretty bad. And it was in Kentucky, it wasn't in Syria, so I don't know what you're going to do about that, but I think ABC owes an apology.
You see, Lindsey Graham just said of your remarks that you made in the Oval Office that if you keep talking like that, quote, this will be a disaster worse than Obama's decision to leave Iraq.
No, Lindsey Graham would like to stay in the Middle East for the next 1,000 years with thousands of soldiers and fighting other people's wars. I want to get out of the Middle East. I think Lindsey should focus right now on judiciary, like the Democrats, the do-nothing Democrats, as I call them, because they're doing nothing. They're getting nothing done. They're not getting USMCA done between Canada, the United States, and Mexico. They're getting nothing done. And I think Lindsey should focus on judiciary. He ought to find out about what happened with Comey, what happened with McCabe, Lisa, what happened with Peter Strzok, what happened with President Obama, what happened with Brennan. That's what Lindsey ought to focus on. That's what the people of South Carolina want him to focus on. The people of South Carolina don't want us to get into a war with Turkey, a NATO member, or with Syria. Let them fight their own wars. They've been fighting for 1,000 years. Let them fight their own wars. The people of South Carolina want to see those troops come home, and I want an election based on that, and that's the way it is, whether it's good or bad. That's the way it is. And if you look at this country, I'd be willing to bet anything, political instinct, that that's what the country wants. I'm not going to get involved in a war between Turkey and Syria, especially when, if you look at the Kurds, and again, I say this with great respect, they're no angels. If you look at PKK, take a look at PKK. ISIS respects PKK. You know why? Because they're as tough or tougher than ISIS. You take a look at a lot of the things having to do, you have to say it. Nobody wants to say it. We're making the Kurds look like they're angels. We paid a lot of money to the Kurds, tremendous amounts of money. We've given them massive fortunes. And you know what? It's wonderful. They fought with us, but we paid a lot for them to fight with us. But just so you understand, we were the ones that captured ISIS. People let some go. They opened a couple of doors to make us look as bad as possible. We have a situation where Turkey is taking land from Syria. Syria's not happy about it. Let them work it out. We shouldn't be over there. And you should get your accounts correct. And you shouldn't be showing up buildings blowing up in Kentucky and say it's Syria, because that really is fake news.
Again, there you go. That is fake news, fake reporting. And people want to impeach this president over that. So that's full circle, guys. And now on some sad news, that's not sad enough, right? Politics is a very sad game, but, other games are a lot more fun. And for the last 36 years, I'm 41, so this person has been on my TV in one capacity, for 36 of my 41 years. In 41 years, 36 of them I've watched on a regular basis, because I'm actually a fan of this show. One, Alex Trebek on the show Jeopardy. I do watch game shows like that. I like the, quips back and forth between the host and the guests, and there's a lot of stuff. It's funny because I've always looked at that show in particular, and I'm like, man, I could probably clean up on that show, because I answer a lot of the questions correctly. Not to, pat myself in the back or anything. I would never do that.
Attaboy.
There you go. No. But Alex Trebek, and this is really sad, he apparently has only a few days to live, and there's an audio clip I'm going to play on this, and take this with a big grain of salt. I have not been able to completely confirm how long he has, but as a lot of people know, he's dealing with the big C, cancer, and I posted this on the website, angelespino.com, for those who want to check out the audio clip there. But I'm going to play this for you guys to listen to. If this is legit, and he does have only a few days left, man, what a loss. Great show, great, run, 36 years, but more than that, terrific human being. Alex Trebek, you don't hear anything negative of anything with that man. In 36 years he's been on TV doing this thing. And when he's gone, I'm going to miss him. I'm going to miss seeing him on TV on the show. And whoever they get to replace him, it's not going to be the same. Because for 36 years to have that presence there, it's going to be kind of jarring to see anybody else take his spot. But my condolences to him and his family for what they're going through. I know what this is all about. I lost my mom in 2016, so I know exactly what they're about to go through. And it's never easy for the family. It's easier, I think, for the person passes, because once you're past, that's it. There's something else. The family that gets left behind have to really mourn, and I know all about that part of the game, folks. Let me tell you. So here's the audio clip. Again, I've only been able to confirm this in 2 places, and as the story unfolds, I'm going to update it a little bit more. Pete, play the Alex Trebek revealing that there's only a few days for him to live.
Hello and welcome to this video. Jeopardy host Alex Trebek continues fighting pancreatic cancer. He recently opened up about the effects of his treatment and hopes for the future. Alex Trebek stunned fans in March when he revealed he was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. He remained on the show Jeopardy until late July. He later took leave from the show to go through treatment and has recently started a new round of chemotherapy. He recently opened up in an interview with CTV News to talk about his battle and treatment. The Jeopardy host revealed that should the inevitable happen, he is not afraid. He told the interviewer that he knows he won't live forever. "I'm not afraid of dying," said Trebek, 79. "I've lived a good life, a full life, and I'm nearing the end of that life. If it happens, why should I be afraid of that? One thing they're not going to say at my funeral, as part of a eulogy, is he was taken from us too soon," the TV legend told senior editor Lisa LaFlamme. Despite the somber nature of the interview, Trebek is usually extremely positive about his struggle. However, he explained that even though he remains upbeat, he is aware that countless other cancer patients also occasionally feel the despair of the diagnosis. He said that it can be difficult trying to be as optimistic as you can when the other person feels none of that. They only feel despair. He went on to admit that he didn't know if I was strong enough or intelligent enough to help alleviate that despair. Trebek, a native of Sudbury, Ontario, then went on to reveal some of the effects he experienced as a result of the chemotherapy treatment he is undergoing. He admitted the treatment has caused sores in his mouth that sometimes cause him to stumble while talking. "I'm sure there are observant members of the television audience that notice also, but they're forgiving," he said. "But there will come a point when they are no longer able to say, 'It's okay.'" Trebek has hosted Jeopardy for 36 seasons. He has appeared on the show for almost 8,000 episodes and intends to stay on the show as long as my skills do not diminish. "There are weaknesses I feel in my body, but I can always suck it up when it comes to tape the show," he said. Thank you for watching this video. For latest in celebrity news, please subscribe to my channel.
And there you go, folks. Alex Trebek, he's not doing well, so our prayers and thoughts are with him at this moment. Hopefully he does recover from his illness. That's man, that's tough. It's tough to lose anybody, but when you are a legend on whether it's entertainment, TV, or whatever, and you're that long in the public, and as a member of the audience who's listening or watching or anything, when it's not a family member, we still feel it. We're human beings, and when somebody like that passes away, we mourn as well. And it's not like I know the man. I have no, say in his life, but it's almost like losing an uncle or a cousin. And by the way, I have a cousin who is in hospice currently, and he's not doing well either. So there's another issue that I'm dealing with in my life. So I completely understand what his family's going through, and man, it's not easy. So if you guys want to check that out, again, it's posted over on the website, angelespino.com. We're going to go on a short break here in a few minutes, but I did want to get to a couple of the stories. One of them a little bit more upbeat, and it involves an ex-Navy officer who turned an investor, and he claims that he's not investor, inventor, and he claims that he has a multi-million-dollar product that can produce that's actually a battery that can produce 1,500 miles without needing charge for an electric car. Now think about this. 1,500 miles. And I will drive 1,500 miles. Now imagine the satisfaction of driving your environmentally friendly electric car for 1,500 miles without having to stop to recharge the battery. A distance more 4 times as far as the best and most expensive model currently on the road. Think about that. Under the bonnet is a revolutionary new type of battery which, unlike those used in conventional electric cars, can also power buses, huge lorries, and even aircrafts. Now that's amazing. What's more, it's far simpler and cheaper to make than batteries currently in the millions of electric vehicles around the world now, and unlike them, it can easily be recycled. Now, this might sound like a science fiction fantasy, but it's not. Last Friday, the battery's inventor, British engineer, and former Royal Navy officer Trevor Jackson signed a multi-million-dollar pound deal, which is, I have no idea how much in American dollars, but he says here to start manufacturing the device on a large scale in the UK. And I see the photo here, and the device is tiny. Like I'm going to post this on my Facebook account because it's not on my website. It's coming from from Daily Mail, dailymail.co.uk. But I'm going to post it on the facebook.com/PSN radio website. It's a tiny device, and this could power aircrafts. Now, think about how much flight and drivability you can get out of something like this without having to refuel. I'm sure it's very quiet. Now, the Austin Electric, an engineering firm based in Essex, which now owns the rights to use the old Austin model company logo, by the way, will begin putting thousands of them into electric vehicles in the next year, according to Austin's chief executive, Danny Corcoran. Corcoran? I think I'm reading that right. The new technology is a game changer, he said. It could help trigger the next industrial revolution. The advantages over traditional electric vehicles, batteries, are enormous, he said. Few will have heard of Jackson's extraordinary invention. The reason, he says, is that since he and the company, became an LTD and came up with a prototype a decade ago, he has faced determined opposition from the automobile industry and the main establishment, and I wonder why. Shocking. I'm not shocked by that. That's completely normal. When somebody comes up with something like that, it's a game changer, why would you give it to the people, right? No, suppress it. Don't bring that out. Let them keep paying a crap load for gas and getting short life of their little tiny electric vehicles. Well, that's why we don't want bigger governments. That's why you gotta vote for Trump. But it says here, but an independent evaluation of the government agency in the UK Trade and Investment said in 2017 that it was a very attractive battery based on a well-established technology and that it produced much more energy per kilogram than standard electric vehicle types. That was in 2017. So, I think it's about time that this gets rolling now. It says 2 years ago, Jackson claims motor manufacturers lobbied the Foreign Office to bar him from the prestigious Conference for the European Businesses and Governments at the British Embassy in Paris, which was supposed to agree a blueprint for ensuring that all cars are electric by 2040. So there was going to be some agreement to try to get all the cars to be switched over to electric by 2040. A bid to exclude his invention and to exclude him failed. Now with the signing of the Austin deal, it seems he is finally on the road to success, and he has secured about 108,000 grant in pounds for further research from the Advanced Propulsion Center, a partner of the Department of Business, Innovation and Skills. His technology has been validated by 2 French universities, and he says, it's been a tough battle, but I'm finally making progress. From every logical standpoint, this is the way to go. And Jackson began working on new ways of powering electric vehicles after a distinguished engineering career. And we wish him well. He worked for Rolls-Royce, by the way, in a Derby. So that guy, man, I hope that we get that technology in every electric car. That'd be kind of neat to be able to go on that kind of distance on an electric vehicle. Think about that. Guys, we're going to go on a quick commercial break. When we come back, we have our guest Dave Emmons on the line, and we have a lot to get to with him, including our encounters. And I really want you to sit back and listen to what he has to say. I'm going to read his synopsis or bio when we get back from break. So stick around. This is going to be a very fun episode of Inside the Jackals Head. All right, everybody, welcome back to Inside the Jackals Head right here live on PSN Radio. The sounds you're listening to there is my good friend Jesse Singer's great song, Good Friends. And special shout-outs to them. Of course, he is of UFOnaut Radio fame, and you guys remember that show here on PSN Radio. Ran for a long time. UFOnaut Radio was a great show, and it dealt with the world of ufology. And contacts was one of our favorite topics. Me and Jesse would go over abduction cases and talk about, our personal encounters and sightings and it was always something that I've been interested in. As everybody who's followed this show knows, that's one of my favorite subjects to bring up, because I always felt that the best thing in ufology is to actually talk to the people that are having the experiences, because you can doctor video. Nowadays any 12-year-old in their mom's basement can create something nice for YouTube. It's doable. But the gentleman who's going to be on with us right now, in a second, who's just waiting patiently there, Mr. Dave Emmons. He is a person who's not only an extraterrestrial contact experiencer, but he also claims to have been, like I said, a trainee in the top secret nuclear weapons department of the military intelligence, but did not like the constant military intelligence interviews and did not like the pressure that he was subjected to. Who the heck does? And God bless you for being in that position, Dave, because let me tell you, I could not hack working military intelligence. I can only imagine the kind of pressure you were in. And thank you for being on here with us. And I wanted, to say that, you're going to really, I think, blow the minds of a lot of folks that are listening in tonight, because your story, and I've been doing a lot of research on you, it's a very interesting and intriguing one that I think most folks who have not heard it are going to really, really be convinced as to, what's been going on, because I think UFOs and a lot of the political stuff and all the stuff that's happening with the world right now, it's all interconnected. So I want to welcome you on formally. You've never been on this show before, so thank you so much for spending the hour here with us.
Well, thank you, Angel, and I'm glad to be here and talking to you from Miami. I'm from Illinois. You're from Miami. Let's get that straight. A little bit of my background, as you alluded to. I come out of high school on the honor roll, and I was above average in, I guess, IQ. So I went directly, after I worked a little bit, I went directly into the military at a young age. I got into a top secret program, nuclear weapons training. And it was that pressure that you were talking about that caused me to get out at 20 years of age. I was in a class with mostly master's degree people, and they were older than me. And, of course, I was holding my own at about 89 or 90% in the class. So I couldn't get out. So I had to go through, I guess, some flips and jumps to get out. Had to go to the post chaplain to get me out of the class because I didn't like it. I didn't like the pressure, number one, of being a young guy at only 20 years of age. And then they said they was going to send us to Sandia, and that meant, that was in New Mexico, and that meant that I'd probably go underground and never see light. I was young enough to believe that was kind of scary. So I got out of that, but I ended up actually just a few months later, ended up going to Vietnam, and I was a combat platoon sergeant. And I had a platoon over there for about a year. Of course, that's our usual stint in the combat. So the combat kind of helped me, I guess, take a look at this ET and UFO subject with a little bit more confidence and not so much afraid of it. Sure, when it happens, you're afraid. I mean, you're shaking when things happen and you see things that you're not used to seeing. That's the thing about UFOs and ETs. It does scare you when you first see one and you say, wow, there is another world out there. There are other life forms out there. And to most people, when they see that, I think that's what the government's afraid. They don't want a lot of people to go berserk or go crazy because they know that there's other life forms out there. That's why they're protecting us. But I wish they wouldn't protect us. I think we do have some disclosure coming out slowly. It's coming in dribbles, and that, to me, is good. But most of the background is in, I went to school, college for journalism, so that's why I'm curious about investigations. I've done some radio in the past. I've worked as a owner of a restaurant and a nightclub, and I played music most all my life. So I've got around pretty much. I've done a lot of things in my lifetime. But some of the things that I think I started with this thought with UFOs and ETs when I was 14 years of age. And this is the first story or the beginning of my UFO ET encounters. So that was a long time ago, Angel.
Let me stop right there because that was a long time ago. First, I want to thank you for your service, and especially in Vietnam. I don't think that the folks that fought over there, they came back alive, get thanked enough. So
no, we had to come back in the dark. They wouldn't let us get off the plane until it was dark, and so people wouldn't protest against us, and they wouldn't see us coming in. So that's, I think that the veterans nowadays, people coming back from war, they're starting to give them credit, and they're starting to take care of them better, and I like that. I like seeing that our men and women are treated well when they come back, and that's very important to me.
That, to me, that's one of the main things I talk about here now on the show, and to me, those folks that put their life on the line to protect our freedoms, and there's a lot of conspiracy that people talk about, whether it's NASA or the military or the government or this or that. We got to understand that the people fighting the actual war are all, there are boys and girls here, and there are sons and daughters, and they're over there in other countries giving their lives. So we can sit here and have this podcast and talk about UFOs. So, that's one thing that is really near and dear to me. And again, I don't think we thank them enough. And it's getting better, though. And part of that is technology. Part of that is the government is now starting to become aware. One piece of news that was recently was, I forget the actor's name, Jon Stewart, I believe, is the actor. The comedian,
really?
Jon Stewart, yeah. He went to Congress and he was talking about the firefighters and how they weren't getting compensated for what they did in 9/11. I'm like, well, I think, the veterans that are still around from Vietnam should have somebody champion their cause the same way, because there was a lot of mistreatment of those veterans that came over from Vietnam, and in particular, when they landed here. And like you said, you guys have to come in the dark, because the boys that came back alive were really, really treated badly. And in fact, if you go back to the backstory of Rambo, the movie, what's that, talking about? The way that he came back and look how society treated him. And that wasn't too far off from what really was happening. And it's a shame that we went through that period in this country where they were so disrespected. And these are the folks giving their lives for our freedom. So, thank you for your service.
Thank you. And I guess, Angel, I should start with my first UFO observation sighting.
Let's get into that, because there's a correlation. I wanted to just to know between what you saw, I think, and something that I saw as a kid. But go ahead and tell the audience this amazing story here. Go ahead.
Okay. This was, we just got out of school, kind of summertime. I don't know the exact date or time. I didn't keep records. I have an event ledger now that I keep records on. I got 260 typewritten pages. I thought about writing a book, but I don't know about writing a book. I don't, right now, I'm not peddling a book and I'm not pushing a book. What I want to do is put the word out the best I can. And this is probably one of the mediums I can probably do that in. So in 1963, my buddy and I were sitting on some steps, and it was just right outside his basement apartment with his dad. He lived with his dad and his uncle. And we sat there and we had a Pepsi Cola, and we listened to 10 transistor radio. Back then, that was the big in thing. So we heard the radio starting to snap and crack. And I asked my friend, I said, hey, didn't you put new batteries in there? He said, yeah, I just did tonight. And then we smelled something that smelled like sulfur. And it was actually, as I went through the years of research, that's ozone. It's what happens when something comes in hot through our atmosphere. And you get nitrogen, hydrogen, oxygen all burning together. And it makes a sulfur dioxide type of, I guess, vapor, and that smells like sulfur. So kind of took me a while to figure that one out through research. But we saw a couple of lights. It was kind of like small, bright lights coming over the neighborhood. And this was a small neighborhood, not a huge neighborhood, up on top of a hill in Alton, Illinois. And we looked at it and we said, oh, what's that? So we went up onto the road. The steps went up to the road. We went up the road, got in his dad's truck, and got a flashlight. And my friend flashed the flashlight at this craft. We didn't know if it was a craft or not until we got a good look at it. Then we walked up the street and got in this empty lot, and which was right above where I lived, my backyard. So this UFO, this saucer, just was about 75 feet in the air, and it just sat there right up above my backyard. And we stood there looking at it, and we kept pinching each other, and we couldn't believe what we were looking at. And we saw, it was kind of like one of those bubbly old time tops that you see that you crank. It was kind of like chubby. It had like three rolls on it. And it was about 30 feet wide, probably about 15 feet or so high. And the second roll of I guess the second line of the design had the windows in it. And I looked at my friend and I said, I don't want to see them looking out. I don't want to see what they look like. I was afraid. I said I didn't want to see them. And then on top, it had a small top on it, like a little about 3-foot cap like on it, and had two metal rods or something sticking up, in which could have been antenna. And that's, I guess they're talking to each other in some sort of frequency, because that's what I noticed on this craft. It had antenna, and that was funny, being only 14 and noticing that. I said, wow, they must communicate on radio. I thought maybe we could communicate with them, but but we stood there for a while, and I think we lost track of time. I know we lost track of time.
Was it making a lot of noise, or was it silent?
No noise at all. I forgot that part of it. No noise at all.
Now it looked like an upside down teardrop, kind of like that's more or less what we described it, right?
Yeah, but a little saucer shape. Let's call it a fat saucer, a little chubby saucer. With 3 layers. Like it looked like the old. I hate to say this, bring this up, but it looked like the old Nazi, the UFO or saucer that they created. Not the bell, bell, the actual saucer that they designed.
Would it be the Hanabu?
I'm not quite sure what they called it. There were several names of some of the experimental craft they had, and I'm not quite sure what they called it, but it had that. I remember it had the Nazi sign on the side. It kind of looked like that experimental saucer that the Nazis were playing with. So, they were involved with some kind of alien technology themselves. So who knows, the Vril group. There was a Vril group that helped them with a lot of their scientific stuff. And
as a lot of people have been reporting over the years, Hitler was deep into the occult. And, you're right, the reports are that he was deep into UFOs, and they were apparently working on some very crazy designs. We're talking about the time of the 40s, folks.
Right.
Think about that.
Yeah, this is late 30s and early 40s. The Vril Society, there was about 12 of them, and they had women with long hair, and they kept the long hair because they said they can pick up the communications from ETs from off of this planet. But that wasn't the thing that I noticed. If you take a good look, there was a woman who had long blonde hair, and she was the leader of this group. And this is who Hitler they spoke to, and she was ahead of her time. If you take a look at her picture, she was kind of like didn't look like she was a pretty woman. And she didn't look like a lot of them that was pictured in the German race there. But that they said that at the end of the war, and they said this is how Hitler escaped. There were about 12 of them that took off and got into this saucer-shaped thing. People in the town of Berlin, northern Berlin, where they took off from, they said they saw them get on this saucer-shaped thing. They didn't say saucer, but some kind of a strange craft. And it took off, and they think Hitler was in that group of 12 people, and that blonde with the Vril Society, she was the leader of that group. So that goes back into Antarctica, where they say there's bases down in Antarctica. So besides that, well, getting back to my story here, I guess it must have been an hour and a half. My buddy and I, we talk every once in a while. We still talk about that incident. But we can't really put our finger on the time. We think it started around 10:30, and we didn't get into our homes until about midnight or so. So there was an hour and a half that went by, and we really don't know what happened. But I kind of figured out as time went on. First, when I went to the house, my mom had it locked up, of course. She was mad because I come in so late. So that's how I knew it was late. I didn't know what time. As a kid, I didn't keep track of time like that. So, but
who does as a kid, right?
Yeah, we don't want to. Yeah, but
yeah.
Later on, I mean, here just several years ago, I drew out a picture of the craft, and I had a position to where my friend and I were standing in this empty lot, and then I took a look at where it took off from. It was in the southwest as we were looking towards it. It was 75 feet above my backyard. And then when it took off, it just zoomed straight out real fast into the clouds. And it went directly into the west. So it must have moved maybe 45 degrees, and we didn't know it, or we didn't see it move. We just saw it just sitting there. So that tells me we were hit by a tractor beam or something. I remember I had some regressed memories that my buddy and I, what him and I said, and he forgot that we was talking to each other. And I do have some of the things we said. I have them on I've been making notes of them, but it was kind of like him and I were talking about being scared and we don't know what we're going to do and that type of thing. But we don't, I don't remember that conversation in a way I did in a regress stream. Also remember being on a metal table and I couldn't put my shirt on. The shirt was too small. And my buddy was smaller than me, and I was always a kind of a Humpty Dumpty type of guy. And I was bigger. I had a bigger shirt, so I couldn't put the shirt on. I had a hard time. And I was really groggy. I was really groggy on the table, I remember. But I ended up with my shirt back on some way or another when I went into the house. I remember that part of it. But I usually go when I do anything. Like I said, I was trained as a journalist, investigator, and so what I do is I try to methodically look at things. I keep notes, and there's always when something happens, there's always something that follows up. Mm-hmm. There's always something. Some people have paranormal. I've had paranormal activity also after each event, but this time, about a month later, I found my first implant. And this was when I was about 14, it was only a month later, and I saw a little line that was cut. It must have been maybe 5/16 of an inch long. It was just a little red line in my left testicle. And I felt a little knot underneath that cut line. And I thought, what was that? I kept pushing on it and trying to squeeze it out, and I got it into that cut line. I got the tip of it. I thought, okay, I can get the rest out. So I pushed the rest of it out finally after about 5 to 7 minutes of pushing on it, and it finally popped out in my hand. And it was about the size of an Advil tablet. It was shaped like an Advil tablet, and it was kind of tan, light brown tan color. And the longer I had it out in my hand, when the air got to it, it started turning darker brown. I showed it to my mom, and she says, "Throw that thing away." And I said, "But Mom," I said, "this is something weird." She said, "That's not weird." She said, "It's probably a blackhead." And I said, "But no." I said, "There was a line. There was a cut where it was at. There was a line that it was put in, and I took it out." And she kind of looks at me, doesn't say anything.
Did you try to scrape at it with like a knife or something to see if you could cut through it? No? No, I threw it away in the garbage. I don't know if I did or my mom took it and threw it away. But she wouldn't have no part of it, so, but of course this was back in the 63. Right.
I was 14. I didn't know anything. And we didn't know much about, ETs or UFOs. I heard about UFOs when I was a kid. We used to watch the monster shows, the Men from Mars, things of that nature. But we didn't know anything other than that. They kept it pretty well quiet. Project Blue Book was going on at the time, and they were trying to shut everything down. So we didn't get all that information.
Back then, and it wasn't like today. Now, anything that goes out there immediately goes viral. There was no internet or anything back then, so yeah, you would be virgin to all that information. But here's the crazy thing in your story there. That's the part that we kind of share a very interesting connection. When I was a kid, a little bit younger than you were, I was living in California at the time, and I had a very similar experience with a friend of mine. We were outside playing, and I've documented this on the show before years ago. So anybody who is hearing now can go back and research the page where I have my audio. You can see that I'm not kidding. I've talked about this at length. And I saw something very similar. I saw an object in the sky. It stood there for a few minutes, and then it just shot straight up to the west and disappeared. Now, I was living in California at the time. This is in the 80s. And I didn't think that it was alien or extraterrestrial because it wasn't something that was in my mind at the time. I didn't really think of the subject. I had no clue what aliens meant. I was a kid. And but I did notice that as soon as it shot up and disappeared, it got dark very quick. No, I didn't keep measure of time or anything like that because, again, I was a kid playing outside with a friend. But it was about maybe 3 p.m., 4 p.m. when we saw the object. And then as soon as it disappeared, within maybe 20, 30 minutes, it just started getting dark and nighttime happened. And I always, my entire life, I was always like, wait a second, how did it never jived correctly for me that happened like that. But I never really thought that I'd been abducted or anything. Now as I've gotten older, I had another experience here in Florida, and that was with my father, who was in the room, and we saw this thing in the sky, some kind of object. And I've always thought, well, it could be E.T., and maybe not. I have no idea what it could be. But when I was listening to some of you talk about your story on other podcasts, that really connected because it was very similar to my experience. And I've often wondered if I have an implant myself, because I do have a piece of something on my right part of my face that's been there since I was that age. It just, there's like a little, I would assume it's like a little piece of metal or plastic or something. But I've never had it surgically removed. It's still there. And that's something that I've been thinking about, having the surgeon go in there and pulling it out. I tried to squeeze it out for a while, and it wouldn't come out. And it was one of those things that happened from one moment to the other. Now, when you squeezed out there, have you found any other implants or anything like that since? Before you continue with the story.
Yeah, your implant now, can you feel it when you touch it? You move it around?
Definitely. You can't move it around too much, but you can still feel it, which is crazy. It's never gone away. It's still there.
Yeah, you ever have X-rays
right
or sonograms?
I have not gotten that around, but I've been thinking about it.
Yeah. I've had sonograms of my head. Nothing's in my head, not even my brain.
I feel like that sometimes, believe me.
Yeah, right. But no, the other implants, since we're on implants, the one that I did find in my left calf of my left leg, and I saw a little round red spot. Why?
Okay.
It's a certain red. I don't know. We can stick a needle in ourselves and it'll kind of like bleed and turn a little blood red. But this is a different kind of red. This is kind of a pinkish red. And I recognized the hole. I saw the hole in my calf, just a small one, and it itched. So I scratched it, and when I did, a bubble of blood popped up. And so I took a napkin and dabbed it off. And when I did, I pulled out something. It looked like dark charcoal. It was in an odd shape, and was about probably, here we're going again, about 5/16 of an inch long, and it's probably 1/8 of an inch wide. And I took it and put it out where I can take pictures of it. I started taking pictures of it, and then I put it in a plastic bag because I noticed that it started, disintegrating. And I think they're made to disintegrate. This is kind of a carbon-based implant in which the aliens use because it's body-friendly to us. It doesn't cause infection or abscess, because if it did, then it would come out, or a doctor would have to take it out. So they know that. And so they use something that's body-friendly. And with the metal implants, of course, it could be something like our titanium, in which is body-friendly. It doesn't affect the body, and neither does silver. Really, certain silver, I guess, might. It has some impurities in it, but they know what to put in our bodies that won't cause any attention or pain. So I had that one, and I got a lot of pictures of it as it disintegrated. I give it to a photographer. I thought maybe he could put it under a microscope and really look at it really well. And he had it for about 5 days, and he sent back pictures that I had already taken. I said, "Is this the best you can do?" And I said, "I got those." And then I finally decided to take a microscope. It's kind of I guess a basic microscope in which I have with me that I use. And I took my camcorder, believe it or not, a Sony camcorder, stuck the lens up to it, and I took pictures of it through that microscope, with a camcorder, and I couldn't believe I could do that. But I tried all my cameras, and I tried that one, and it worked. It was kind of like 6X, where it really magnified things, and I got some decent pictures of it, but not the pictures before it really disintegrated. As I freshly had it, I took it to a little conference in Springfield, Illinois, and I had a scientific friend of mine. She was an elderly lady, and she was a biologist, and she worked at St. Louis University in the lab. And she took a look at this thing, and she said, and she was into UFOs and crop circles. She was a researcher also, and a really good one. She looked at this thing. She goes, "My God, I've never seen anything so ugly. It looked like brain neurons. It looked like little brain neurons. It was breaking off from the carbon."
That would make perfect sense because, I mean, that would connect to your tissues and connect directly to your body type.
Right.
Yeah.
That's it did make sense, but I wish I would have got pictures of that where it was breaking off as brain neurons, because that would have been the key thing. But what happened is it disintegrated so much as I had it, I didn't get the proper pictures at that time. It started shrinking and disintegrating. I kept it airtight, and it's still once it hits the air, I think these ETs design it like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that would make sense. That's how you keep people from really finding out what it's made of and what signals it might be emitting. Now, it sounds like with what you were when you pulled out of your body, it sounds more like you were getting tagged because you're able to squeeze this thing out. I have not been able to squeeze the one out of my face. I mean, I don't know how permanent it's in there now, but and it's right between the actual facial cheeks, the inside and the outside of my face. So there's not a lot of tissue in between. And other than cut from the outside or the inside, there's no way that I could get the thing to come out. So I don't know if it's a different kind of metal or anything. Now, the one positive, I've never been stopped at an airport because the metal detector went on or anything like that. So that's a good thing. But I have. That's how I was going to bring up. You've experienced this, and that's what boggles my mind because I haven't.
Well, my experience is not that a metal detector went off. I went through the metal detector just fine. It's when you go into this machine that goes around you. It's on international flights. It goes around you. You hold your arms in the air, and it actually it emits frequencies, not X-rays. So the frequencies, it hits your body, and if there's something that's not supposed to be on your body, it shows up. Well, I had orange spots show up across my chest and my shoulder, about 5 little orange round things. And when I got through, my wife said, "Come on, honey, let's go. Let's pack our stuff and get on the plane." I said, and then this guy grabbed me by the arm, and it kind of hurt. And the TSA agent, he looked at me and says, "You're not going nowhere." I said, "What's wrong?" I thought I was had. You're always afraid when TSA calls your attention.
Yeah, so no kidding.
He showed me the human silhouette on the machine. He said, "See those things there?" I said, "They're orange spots." I said, "What are they?" He says, "I don't know, but they're not supposed to be there. I've never seen them before." So they dragged me off to the side. They didn't do a strip search, but just close to it. They took metal and they rubbed all kinds of these things that are supposed to pick up their swabs or something. They swab your arms and your face and your chest, and they make sure there's no chemicals on there, bomb making chemicals. And so I was clean. I was just everything was fine, but they kept staring at me, and they said, "Okay, you can go, but carry this card to the airline attendant." And it was a red card, and it said something on it. I didn't pay much mind to it, and I guess it was to say, "Watch this guy," And I was scared. I was scared to death because I've never committed a crime. I was never in jail. I got a speeding ticket, even fought that. So I tried to stay clean most of my life. Of course, all of us can be arrested for something, I guess, if they really wanted to dig and dig and dig like they do in politics. They do that, and they can always find dirt on everybody, I guess. So what I felt is I felt like a criminal. I said, wow, they're treating me like a criminal. So I did that flight, and about a year and a half later, I took another international flight with my wife, and I told my wife that I hope these orange spots don't show up. One of them was in Fairbanks, Alaska, where we lived for 2 years up there, and then the other one was in Seattle before I jumped the flight to Tokyo, and they found the same thing, the orange spots. I looked at the guy, and I said, this has happened before. He said, what do you mean this happened before? I said, it happened about a year or so ago, sir. And he said, those orange spots? I said, yes, sir, those spots. He said, you know the drill then? I said, yes, I do. So I stood to the side, and they went over me and everything. And they didn't give me a card this time. They just let me go, and they just kept looking at me like I was crazy or something. I don't know what it was. But, yeah, those showed up. And I had a gal, I was on with Grant Cameron. He had a group experiencer meeting, and there was about 15 of us on there. I mentioned something about the orange spots because they were talking about being picked up at TSA with metal and stuff in your body. And I mentioned the orange spots, and this lady said, well, I had those. A couple of years ago, I had orange spots on me. And I said, really? And I said, have you been abducted? She said, well, I've seen some things pretty close up, and I've been around that kind. I said, well, you know, you've probably been abducted, and you got some kind of energy frequency that they tagged you with, you know. And so I tried, you know, I thought, wow, that's neat. Somebody else has these same orange spots. So there was a TSA agent. I think she was retired, and she says, write me an email. And she said, I'll tell you, what we might think it is. And she said the TSA is very secretive about things. I never did write her, never did, look to find out. But, that was the only thing that ever showed up on any test that I know of. The other thing that showed up, like an EKG or something they run on me, I got so much electricity in my body that a lot of times my camera won't take pictures for me. I can't push the little button on my iPhone 10 to take a picture. Maybe it'll go off one time, next time it won't go off. I have to get somebody else to do it. And my wife complains about me having electricity in my body when I touch her. So
like static electricity charge. Yeah. You're overcharged with static. Okay.
Right. I can get to the story of an abduction where I think I got that charge. Please. And maybe I'll go through that to explain this electrical charge. This was after I ran into the alien hybrid in Sedona, 2010, October 4th. I'll never forget that day.
That's recent, yeah.
Well, 2011 is when I had the implant in my leg I took out. So those, and then I've had in 1996, I saw a little green guy next to my bed, and I had fear for about 5 or 6 seconds, and then I just kind of went out. I thought it was my adopted daughter that come in the room because she went to the medicine cabinet to get aspirins because she had a headache, and my ex-wife was asleep. And I saw a dark shadow going across the mirror at the foot of the bed. I figured I better get into this story since I started talking. I got a lot of things I can talk about, but we can burn up a lot of time talking about it. But this dark shadow went across the mirror. My ex-wife always liked to keep it dark in that room because she could sleep better that way. Well, I looked at it and I called out her name a couple of times. I got on my elbow and I looked up and I said her name a couple of times, no answer. And then this dark figure walked around to the side of my bed where I was at. I took a look and all I could see were big eyes. It didn't have the black lenses like you see the little grays with the big black eyes. This had pupils, white.
Kind of like a leprechaun looking little green guy, almost leprechaunish.
Yeah. Yeah, really, really wrinkled. More wrinkled than the smooth grays that they picture on commercial use. This guy was so wrinkled, it's this, and it was scary. He's kind of a dark gray green in the darkness, and I couldn't tell the exact color. He had to be a gray green, and but his eyes were huge. I didn't see a nose or anything protruding from his head because it was dark. But all I could see was his eyes, and he looked at me, and I had fear. like I said, for about 5 or 6 seconds, and then I went out. So when I went out, he must have performed a few things on me, maybe an implant, maybe a DNA sample, and maybe a semen sample. I could almost say he did take a semen sample because I later on down the line, running into this alien hybrid in 2010, I believe I saw the results of that in 2011, March of 2011. But that's all I saw that night. I asked the wife, said, "Did you see or hear anything?" And she goes, "No, shut up and go to bed." Well, my eyes were batting like a nervous tick. It was kind of like I was hit with some kind of energy, and my eyes kept blinking. I couldn't stop them. I went in the bathroom, threw cold water in my face, and I tried to stop my eyes from blinking. It was, I don't know what he did to me, but he was using some kind of a magnetic force to keep me asleep or keep me from moving. So that's all I can think of.
Wow. That's an amazing story. And, you know, Ted, let me ask you a particular question. Are you a religious man? Do you believe in historical lore? Because I asked the question there, and this is part of my theory of what's happening here. When you mentioned the description of the creature, it almost has a crossover of shadow people and leprechauns. And part of my theory is that it's all connected to aliens and UFOs, and it's been stuff that we've misdiagnosed or misinterpreted in the past. Did this being communicated verbally at all with you?
No, he just looked at me. He just looked at me, and actually when he looked at me, he gave me a calming feeling because I laid back, and it was kind of like saying, everything's okay, just take it easy. So when I did, I laid back, put my arm down, and I fell out. I fell asleep or was knocked out, one of the two. So, I didn't know anything after that. They claim that 50% of the people that's been abducted don't know they've been abducted.
Right.
So there's a lot of people out there that's been abducted and they don't know it. So I think there's a lot for us to learn, like you said about we misidentified a lot of creatures in the past, but I think it has something to do with ET. I even think that ghost, Bigfoot, has a lot to do with ET, dimensional forces, because there are dimensional ETs, extraterrestrial, extra dimensional. They call them interdimensional people.
Right.
Are beings. Yes. So we're inundated by several different kinds of entities or ETs. The spiritual ET is supposed to be, from what I understand, the highest form of all ETs, and they're supposed to be pure energy. And
or light
I believe.
Beings. Light beings. And let me stop you there for a second, because, there's something very interesting in the way we perceive reality. We live in a three-dimensional world, but we live also on what, science is now kind of saying that it's almost like we're on a wave, right? We're riding a wave.
Right.
And that goes back even to Einstein's theory of relativity. And you could even look at the Bible. The Bible says when God made the universe, the heavens and the earth, he said, "Let there be light." The fact that God spoke, he created the first wave, whether it's the earth or the entire universe. The fact that there was some kind of a being that said, "Let there be light," means, that we're riding some kind of a wave. That's the way I interpret it. So, remember, we're talking about different times when something is written thousands of years ago compared to 500 years ago to now, and how we interpret things. I think that's where they were getting at in the Bible when they said things like, and God said that let there be light. To me, I interpret that as whoever the creator is, put us on this wave. And when we talk about interdimensional beings and getting to that, I think what's happening is the waves are getting crossed, and we're experiencing other dimensions that are being able to cross over, because Art Bell put this beautifully in the 90s, in the early 2000s, before he retired. He said that the veil was dropping between dimensions, between realities, and I completely agree with that. I think as more and more technology, advances, we're going to see more abilities to be able to communicate with other dimensions, and it's going to be through waves and in different form of those kind of technologies, because that I believe is what reality is. We're riding a cosmic wave at the moment.
Right.
Where our reality stains on.
Light frequencies.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. You were asking me, Angel, a while ago about religious thoughts or ideas. Well, I take a look at the Bible, and it makes more sense to me after being through a lot of things that I've been through and seeing things that lets me know there's something else going on out there. I do know that we go to somewhere else when we leave this body. That's a fact. Now, that's something that a lot of people say, well, you believe in UFOs, that's the devil. No, it's not the devil. It's letting us know that there's something else out there, and we are going somewhere after we leave our bodies here. So if you take a look at the Bible, the genealogy in the Bible, and also the historical records of locations of cities and the archaeology, they've been proving a lot of that. Now, the genealogy, even when Noah, they said Noah was a tall, pale white guy with piercing blue eyes and blonde hair, and he was taller than the average person back in those days.
Right.
So that could have been, I hope I don't offend anybody, but I'm thinking that there's a bloodline that the ETs put in there, that you got the tall white aliens and this type of thing. But actually, Noah, spread his genealogy went down the line. It's just like with King David in the Bible, Solomon, and also Virgin Mary had a bloodline from King David. They were in the same bloodline, and Jesus was part of that bloodline. If you can, just picture it, they kept it. That bloodline was something special, apparently. And when Jesus was born and the angels showed up, of course, angels to me are the light people, like you said, are the ETs. And Jesus was sent here to teach us that there's another side of life. There's another rebirth that happens to us. And I don't, it's like he talked in parables. And in the Bible, in a lot of the text in the Bible, you'll read it. It's actually he talks simple, because the people back then, they weren't even above our first grade level. Most of them, 80-90% of them. So he had to talk that way, and so that's how he tried to tell them things. And his people that he had with him around him, and the little meetings he had with people, he would talk in simple terms, because people couldn't understand anything above that. So I think he was a light being. He was of course, he was man, and then he was also the spiritual. They say, what is that? Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost.
Right.
The Holy Ghost
Holy
could
Trinity.
be the light. Yeah.
Right. The Holy Trinity. And real quick, I don't know if you've ever researched the Buddha and the teachings of the Buddha, but there's in the monks' description of the Buddha, there's a time in we're talking about 2,000 years ago, the time of Jesus, where a man from the Mediterranean, as they describe it in their writings, named Isu, was very young, and he spent time learning about the afterlife with the Buddha, and he is described as what we come to believe the modern day Jesus kind of looks like, and they called him Isu, which of course the name is translatable in many different forms and ways. Now we call him Jesus. Now, have you looked into that at all? The connection?
I know a little bit about Buddha, and I know a little bit about other religions, and they all have there's different roads, but all those roads lead to the same place. That's one of the big things I'm catching from taking a look. I'm not studied on a lot of this stuff like Buddha and everything, but I know basically what it's about. Every I guess religion has its beginnings, like Muhammad, so they all have similar beginnings, and it has to be some intervention from ET to come in and intervene with certain individuals and create this change. I think actually this world is being controlled by ETs. They bump us when we're kind of going this way or that way, and it's kind of they're just tweaking us as we go, and they're tweaking our DNA also.
Oh yeah, I believe that.
Yeah, we got so many genius kids now. These little 4 and 5-year-old kids that can play pianos like Mozart. It's wow. It's getting more and more where people are getting more intelligent, and they don't even have to try very hard. So I see the human, I guess, genome or DNA is actually getting higher and higher as we go, and maybe the ETs have some responsibility for that, because we've taken big spikes and big jumps in our technology throughout the years, and in certain periods of time, we jump from one place to another real quick.
Oh, not only that, Dave. This is a very funny thing that I was checking out earlier tonight. Remember, we come from a day and age where we didn't have the big computers or the internet or anything like that, because we're a little bit older than maybe some of the listeners. But now, 5-year-olds, 4-year-olds use tablets, and they can, even before they learn how to read, they can go through these things and flip to different pages. You can imagine in 10 years, 15 years, when virtual reality becomes a norm, kids, 10, 11-year-olds are going to have virtual reality worlds that they can interact with. And technology, I think, is the way we're not only indoctrinating the children of the world to think a certain way, but it's helping the evolution of the mind, because technology is not, unfortunately, some people are going to use it for to look up porn on the internet in the future, or now. But the people that are serious about being smart and learning are going to have the entire planet at its fingertips, which we have that now with the internet. The internet is an early base technology of what the future holds, and it's scary because we used to be in this humongous world where everybody was apart, nobody knew each other, and now because of the internet, we're like a tiny community where you can go online and you can have 1 billion friends on Facebook or Twitter or anything like that, and it's kind of made this vast world that we live in into what really it is. It's a small marble, going in the cosmos, floating in vacuum of space, and it's changing the dynamic and the overall, way we view the world, in my opinion. And that's a big step in the direction of the evolutionary path. I think, you hit it on the head when, the ETs have been manufacturing our society in a way. And one thing I do believe is, we were kind of created, I do believe that part of the story. But at the same time, I think there's agendas as to why we were created. And then we were just left here in quarantine here, which explains why we're not going back officially to the moon or to Mars until many years from now. They always keep pushing things forward or back, and they say, we're going to go back there in 10 years, and then 10 years pass, and we're like, well, we don't have the technology that we had when we went to the moon originally. How is that possible? How can you tell me that all these years later we don't have the technology that we had then to go to the moon? Now does that make any sense? But that's the world we live in, unfortunately, and I do think we're quarantined here.
Right. We're talking about technology. I actually think that technology is making us less friendly in a way. I remember the days back in the 50s and 60s where communications took place on a neighbor's front porch or out in their yard, and we talked face to face directly. We shook hands and we give each other hugs. But nowadays, they're getting totally, I guess, disjointed from the human race. And a lot of people, take the millennials now, I heard there's a lot of them not even dating because they don't know how to date. They don't get out and about. They get on their computers and they're computer junkies. Is that good for our human society? I don't think so. I think we're going to need to find some kind of an answer to to actually developing real friendships instead of like computer friendships, because those aren't as strong. That you can get on the internet and be anybody and lie and say anything. And I'm not doing that now, and I swear to my Lord that I'm not doing that. I wouldn't come on here and lie about anything that's happened to me. I take the lying pretty badly. I don't like lying. I'm an honest person, and that's one of the things I guess I cherish from my upbringing, and also from the religious ideas. I take away the religious ideas that Christ had: love, forgive, and also, to be honest, treat your fellow man correctly or kindly. Treat everybody with kindness. I believe in those words that were spoken, and those were to teach us. I don't want to go any further on how I think about Jesus, but that's where I kind of stop and say right. He was a great teacher, and he was a person of a light being, and I don't know what else to say beyond that, because they don't have any record actually of Jesus after the age of 12 until he turned up when he was 30 years old, and right. 4 years with his disciples. So then they haven't found an archaeological record of him yet either, and they have everybody else so forth. So not everybody, but the majority of the people in the Bible, the biblical times. But I guess I need to get back on topic on this. On the first big abduction that I really knew I was being abducted. This was in 2011. This was after I met this alien hybrid, and I'll have to get to that story to finish out probably. But I wasn't laying in bed yet. This is 1:30 in the afternoon, bright sunny day, and it was a springtime day, and I was sitting at the computer writing something or doing something, and I got really tired. I felt really exhausted. I don't usually get that way. I don't take naps at all during the day. If I do, it really messes me up. So I laid on the bed just to rest my back, because I have a bad back. So I laid the rest of my back, and I was on my elbow, and I was looking out my bedroom door, which was really bright and sunny, and and then I heard a crackling and popping next to my bed. I mean, this was really loud. This is like if you stomped on a big box of saltine crackers, and it was just crunching and crackling. I tried to turn around and see what it was. When I did, a jolt of electricity hit my shoulder, and it stunned me, and I couldn't move. And then I was able to move a little bit. I tried to move again. It hit me again, and I couldn't move. And I said, oh my God, what's going on? This is not sleep paralysis. I can look at the door, and I didn't have fear. I mean, I didn't have fear of like a sleep paralysis person, like somebody, like they talk about the old hag that sits on their chest and they can't breathe. I didn't have those symptoms. I was wide awake, and I was in the connection with the reality of what's going on. And then I heard my sister's voice from down the hall. Said, come on, Dave, you can do it. You can do it, Dave. I said, do what, sissy? That's what I called her. And she said, you can do it. Do it. I said, do what? Come to the door and show me, come to the door and talk to me. Well, the reason why I told her to come to the door and talk to me, because she's dead 4 years at that time. So that was a voice from the grave, I guess you could say.
Right.
So it was really loud, and I couldn't get her to the door. Then my left hand was up against my headboard, and then something slipped into my fingers, and it was a baby's hand. I touched his palm, and I pulled down on his fingers. I was able to move the tips of my fingers, and I pulled down on the fingers, and I said, that's a human baby hand. I said, what is going on? And all I could do, like I said, I could room my eyes a little bit and just my fingertips. And then all of a sudden something sat beside me near my hip area, and it was real heavy. It felt heavy up against me. And I started losing it then. And here again, I come out with this religious thought, and I said, oh God, help me, like that. And just a few seconds after I said that, everything went away. And I slowly come back to myself when I jumped out of the bed and I said, what just happened? This was weird. So I talked to Dr. David Jacobs. I believe it was him or one of the other. I've seen several of them in Arkansas. I get them mixed up. But I talked to, I think it was Jacobs. And I asked him about this abduction. And I told him I was electrified. And he kind of smiled. And I said, well, you don't believe me? He said, oh, I believe you. He said, as soon as you start saying you were electrified, he says, you think you were being abducted at that time? I said, yeah. He said, no, they were done with you. They were bringing you back. He said, that's how they bring you back. He said, you're brought back with this tractor beam or this electrical charge. And I said, oh my goodness. And I said, well, the second time it happened, about 2 or 3 weeks later, I felt the shock on my shoulder again, and I was wide awake again. It was about 10 o'clock evening then, but I was wide awake. And then I felt it, and I tried to push it away, and I thought I pushed it away, and I said, oh, good, I've fought this one off. And that's when he told me, no, you didn't. You were abducted again. They took you again. I said, wow. But that's where the electrical shock comes in, and that's why I think I might have that energy.
That makes a lot of sense. It's almost like you're paralyzed and then they just snap you back into reality.
Right.
Yeah. That would make perfect sense.
Yeah. So I felt that shock 3 times, one time on my finger, in which I thought my finger was blowing off. And I was laying there in bed. I wasn't near any electrical devices or anything. And my finger, I turned on the light and I thought my fingernail was off. I was bleeding or whatever, and nothing. It was nothing, but it really, like a bolt, like a hammer hit me on the end of the tip of the finger. So that's the electrical charge that I felt 3 different times.
Wow. Now, when you talk at conventions and whatnot, how are the folks that are listening reacting to this part of the story? Because this is a very physical thing that's happening to you. I mean, this is not something that, it's just a story of something you saw. Now you're physically feeling electrical charges going through your body. That's a little bit extra than what we normally hear when it comes to abductions.
Right. Well, I studied sleep paralysis, and I've talked to people with sleep paralysis because academia, the first thing they're going to tell me is that was just sleep paralysis. I said, no, it wasn't. I've had
no one
sleep
you get that
paralysis.
charge, because I've had sleep paralysis. I've never gotten that charge. That's
right.
Yeah,
I've had sleep paralysis too. It's been some time ago. I guess maybe 20, 30 years or longer that I've had any. Only once or twice in my life have I ever had that. But it didn't feel like this. I was wide awake. I knew everything that was going on. When I had sleep paralysis one time, I couldn't move, and I was afraid, and my mind didn't catch up with my body. I think that's what they say. Your mind is still not connected to your body. You disjointed from sleep. In a deep sleep. So, no, it wasn't sleep paralysis. None of it was. So I can actually say that. And also, I know a little bit about the frequencies of energy. Now, mind you, a lot of my abductions and things that happen, I sometimes didn't know that I was being abducted. The times that I got electrocuted just about, I knew I was abducted. That was, also with the little green guy next to my bed. But I've had some regressed dreams, vivid regressed dreams. They were so real that I actually communicated in them, and I somebody was walking me to my front door, and they had me by the back of the shoulder. They had a hand or something on me. I tried to look around. I couldn't see anything. I guess they wouldn't let me move too much. But they actually walked me to my front door from my bedroom, and it was a metal door. I have a metal, door that's got the foam cushioning in the middle of it, but it's metal. I mean, it would hurt you if you slammed up against it. So They told me to walk through the door. I heard something telepathically tell me, walk through the door. And I said, no, I'll hurt my head. So what I did is I stuck my hand out, and when I stuck my hand out, my hand went through the door. And I said, oh, wow. And I was kind of dazed and stupid. I says, anybody getting a picture of this? This is weird. I'm sticking my hand through my door. And I left it in there for a little bit, and then I felt it burning. It was really burning my arm, and it was the frequency. I was in a higher frequency. They put me in a higher frequency so I can walk through objects. That's how they get you from one place to another, because they put this high frequency in you and around you. So I had my arm through the door, and it was starting to hurt. It was starting to burn really bad. So I only had one choice, was to finish going through the door. And when I did, and I hopped out on my porch, I didn't know anything after that. That was it.
Did you visually see anything as you're walking through the door? Like, did you see like the metal?
I could see the door. Yeah, I could see my door, and I could see my living room as I was walking towards the door. I didn't see anything else. They didn't expose themselves to me. I didn't see any of the aliens that were with me. I might have been controlled telepathically. I don't know. Put to sleep, controlled.
Maybe it was an out-of-body experience. Like maybe they pulled your soul out of your body, and that's how they got you there. And
could be. I have, those are things too that you have to look at. Sometimes they don't use the whole body. They just take your conscience and your soul. And that's enough for them to study and to upload from you. So, they don't necessarily have to take your body, but when they do work on your body, I think they do it right there at your bed or at the location that you're at, because what they normally do is they'll take semen or they'll take DNA samples, and they'll take a look at you, examine you real quick, and they can do that in your bed. That necessarily doesn't have to be tractor beamed up to their ship. But I do remember I have vivid regressions of being on several ships, very vivid. So I have that one story.
Not to cut you off, but in a physical way, you have these vivid memories. And let me ask you, in this, it's relative to your story. Have you felt, or have you in any way looked at yourself and said, I look younger for my age? Because not only may you have missing time, we're talking about, an advanced race that may have come here from who knows where. If they can abduct in this kind of manner, maybe they're dealing with something that might take several hours, and they can just drop you right off, almost like the instinct or the moment that they took you from where you're sleeping. So it could be almost instantaneously, where you disappear and you come back a few minutes later or an hour later, but you might have been gone for a day or two or a week. You never really know. I mean, have you ever felt like you're younger than your actually ages? If you've been through, a lot of experiences, it starts to catch up if that's the case.
Well, I've been, I hate to say it, but I'm 70 years old. But most people clock me about 50 and maybe younger. Yeah, they think I'm 45 sometimes. I do have a young appearance to me. I do fool a lot of people. I almost got in a guy that's almost going to punch me out because he thought I was lying about me being in Vietnam. He said, "You're not old enough to be in Vietnam. Don't lie to me." He said, "You and I need to go outside. You're lying to me." I said, "No, buddy. I don't even know you. I don't want to fight you." I said, "Here's my driver's license. Take a look at it." And he looked at it and he gave it back to me. He says, "Man," he said, "you could have fooled me." And I said, "Oh," so yeah, I've had that. But also my older brother keeps telling me from high school, from my first abduction when I was 14, I scored high on my IQ. I scored high on the military test exams, really high. I scored high enough to choose any job in the military I wanted. So I chose top secret nuclear weapons. I thought that was the big kahuna there, But,
yeah, the cream of the crop.
Didn't work out that way. But yeah, my brother keeps accusing me. He said, "You and our friend seem like both of you got an intelligence leap during that time." And I pause. I don't say anything. I pause and I think, did I? I might have. I don't know. Maybe they charged my electrons in my brain or whatever. But I've always done well in that area, especially when I was younger. After that, and I've been accused. Like I said, my older brother still says it to this day. he says, you've been abducted. He says, your IQ went up about 30 knots, 30 notches, I mean. So, yeah, you asked that question, but I'm not sure if it relates. I'm not going to put that in. I'm not going to put that in the UFO events. Okay. That's just off to the side. That's not part of my UFO events.
The reason I mention that is it's because of my own research. I've found that a lot of abductees, and especially the ones that I see have multiple experiences through their lives, tend to look younger than their age. Not only that, they tend to have better health than normal folks. Travis Walton is somebody, for example, who we all know what he went through in the 70s. And when I spoke to him, one of the things he told me was that his health has been incredibly good, considering all the years that's passed. And we see him now at conventions or wherever. I mean, Travis, for his age, looks incredible. I mean, he's very vibrant still, outspoken. He never was a guy who went out early on and wanted to just make money off of his story. He wasn't about that. He kept his job from when he was abducted till the day he retired, decades later. So it's not like he went on the road immediately and started selling books and making videos, or even though there was a movie made about his life, that was, a decade and a half later or a decade later. But even with that said, the guy's lived a very humble life, and he's been in great health. And
right. Angela, I actually know Travis. I visited him at his house in Snowflake, Arizona. And that's near the Petrified Forest, only about 20 miles away. Yep. And I visited him at his house, and he's from humble beginnings. And he told me, he said, yeah, I'm retired from the Forestry Service, but he says they don't give you a very good retirement. So, like you said, but yeah, he's always. I've met him. I met him in I guess it was Alamo, Nevada, when he did he did one of his first conferences there. He was actually, this was back in I guess, when was that? Gosh, must have been 08, 09. And he wasn't really, he kind of stayed away from giving, speeches at these conventions a lot, and he wasn't really good at it yet. He didn't have his timing down, but he was really nervous when he first started. And so this was in Alamo, and I met him there, talked to him. And I met him again in Arkansas a couple of times, the UFO convention there. And so I got to know him pretty well. I told him a little bit about my story, but not much. Sometimes when these guys are on their own story and on their own book and they're on their own dime, they don't want you to call them. Right. So it's kind of like that. They got their thing going on. They got their hands full, whatever. But it's I share a brotherhood, or you can even say a sisterhood, with a lot of women and men who've been abducted, and I draw close to them, and I want to get to know them, how things are going for them and what happened to them. I'm always curious, because you're always looking for that little part of the puzzle that you may not have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very true, very true. Now, I know we're getting short on time here. I don't know how much further deep you want to go into your story, but I know that, you've given a lot of your time tonight, and it's always fun to continue listening. But, getting into the conventions real quick, are you going to be doing anything in the near future that you want to talk about? How many of these have you done? I love conventions, by the way. I love going and meeting folks like Travis and yourself, and I got to meet Stan Friedman before he passed away, which was a huge thing for me. And Kathleen Martin, got to meet her. I mean, have you gone?
Yeah, she's a great lady. Yeah.
Oh my God, she's an amazing woman. Yeah. Getting to know these folks and see them in person and thank them. Stan Friedman, somebody that I've been researching what he's been talking about with Roswell for years, and I got to thank him live on camera, and that was an amazing experience for me. And are you going to be doing more stuff like that in the near future, more of these conventions?
Well, Grant Cameron, when I talked to him, Grant right now is busy. He's actually going through Stanton Friedman's records, and he's putting a lot of that stuff out on Facebook. some of the
Right.
letters that he got from the government and some of the I guess information that he got about UFOs. And so Grant is Richard Dolan was also involved with that project, but it looks like Grant's doing a lot of that right now. So he's been really busy with that. But a lot of times I would do a call-in show with him, and I did a couple with him. Then I did about 2 or 3 group sessions with him and his group. But he's been really busy. He told me that I would probably be on the speaking circuit before long. I've never done a convention. A lot of times you have to write a book. You have to get that little platform with a book. I haven't done that. But I've been doing the radio thing. This is I've probably done, I just started doing a lot of this the last 3 months or so. I've done probably 32 hours of radio in the last 2-3 months. So I've done quite a bit, and I've got some more shows coming up. I'm just doing that. I could write a book. Yeah, I got enough. I got enough for I guess a rough manuscript right now with my ledger. So, but I haven't just flipped that coin to do it yet. You know how that is. It is. I don't know. I'm there, and I want to be. A lot of people tell me I should write a book. I could probably write 2 or 3. I would have liked to make a screenplay on meeting that. Maybe this story I should tell before we go off the air.
A documentary would be great for you, by the way. Also, a video documentary that you could put out there. A seriously based, directed, high standard, high quality documentary. I think would help, greatly as well. And those lectures, to spread, not only the stories that you've experienced. But to get further conversation going, which is, I think, one thing we always need is serious conversation when it comes to the subject, and not the hokey stuff like, the star people that came down and they told us the future, what's going to happen. And they start talking about stuff that they went through in their past life in Mars, and that's a little bit different, and that's great and has a purpose.
I catch your drift on that. Those are kind of like dreams or something that's coming from maybe your own creativity.
Right.
Maybe. I'm not saying that about everybody, but sometimes it does. That's why I said I have to have some kind of a factual proof that something happened that triggered some of my events. And like seeing 5 UFOs up close, I think that's enough to trigger some secondary facts and information and events to follow. So I go by solid evidence, basically. I don't have solid evidence. Somebody asked me in Canada, this guy was a disinformation guy. And he said something about my abductions. He said, but you don't have any proof about your abduction. I said, proof? I said, how can I have proof when you're the only one involved in the abduction and the person laying next to you is dead asleep because they put him asleep? And I said, they're going to use one person. I said, also, a lot of those years I was single. I wasn't married. And who knows, I could have been taken for some time, like you said, and nobody would have really known. And I would have found myself laying in bed and said, oh, wow, did I oversleep? So I wouldn't know. And this guy was really mean. I really felt he had a lot of information wrong. He even said that my wife and I had ET meetings at our house in Washington State. Well, I live in Illinois, and my wife is not involved in the ET. She's an academic type person, but she believes what I've been through because she's had some things happen to her, and she's had a scrape on her back where they've taken a sample from her, some DNA scrape, and she's felt somebody touch her on her leg and grab her on her leg and stuff. So she knows what I've been through. She believes me because
how long have you been together, you and your wife? If you don't mind me asking.
7 years.
7 years.
Okay. Yeah, when something happens, she'll say, your friends are here. I looked at her and said, what do you mean? She said, I've been, somebody grabbed me on the shoulder, and she said, I felt something, presence, and I said, yeah. I said, yeah, they're here. So she knows. and she's actually seen a couple of UFOs with me in the sky. And, that we saw one in the daytime that was bright and shiny, and she looked at it. She said, "Look, there's a UFO." She can almost identify him, and she hasn't had that much training or practice at it. But yeah, she realizes. But I could tell this story about the hybrid. I've been mentioning it. You think I have about 5 minutes? I'd get through this real quick.
No, go for it. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. In 2010, October 4th, the day to remember, but I'll never forget that day. And I was actually told by a person that I went and saw about 10 days earlier, who was I guess she called herself a seer. She was part Indian, and she said she's not a psychic, but she's I forget what she called herself, but she can see things and feel. And she told me that I was going to run into my first ET October 4th. And she said, "When are you taking off?" She said, "Soon." I said, "Yeah, next week." She said, "Well, you'll see first alien October 4th. I said, "Really?" And she said, "Your car is going to be damaged, but you're going to be able to drive it home." Well, the car damage was actually hail damage. I had $2,600 hail damage, the first tornado they had in Arizona in 50 years out there, and I just so happened to be there.
Wow.
And that's when I met this hybrid gal, Hiroko. She was of Asian descent, Japanese, and I've heard that there's Japanese aliens that people have actually seen and actually met. Well, I met one. I got into Sedona, and I went to this gift shop, and they told me they saw a UFO at Cathedral Rock. So that's a Cathedral Rock, Cathedral Rock, but or Butte, where do you want to call it? But I went there thinking, well, maybe I'll get something on film. So I started filming, and then pulls in behind me a little white car. Well, out steps this gal. She's in her 30s probably. She's a Japanese gal, and she had blue jeans on and a white sweater, kind of dressed kind of poorly, like no jewelry, no makeup, no nothing that a woman normally would wear, and she didn't even have a purse on her. And she comes walking over to me smiling, and I asked her, I said, "Are you going hiking? Are you waiting for somebody else?" She goes, "No." And she was like a little puppy. I couldn't get rid of her. And I said, "Well, it's going to start raining if you're going to go hiking." And then it did start raining when I said that. And then I said, "You want to sit in my car? We can talk." So we sat in my car, and we talked for about an hour and a half. While we were there was a car that pulled up beside us. And this looked like a young guy in his mid-20s or so, and he had short cropped hair, and he had a headset on. And he did not look at me at all. And this happened 3 times within the hour and a half we were there. So he was actually watching the situation, or her guard, or whatever. I was told that actually what happens is that when these hybrid aliens come here to learn how to be human, they have a human sponsor, number one, a human sponsor who takes care of them, and then they have security, somebody who watches over them. Well, I saw the security guy, and I think I saw the human sponsor the next day. But we talked for an hour and a half, and she tried to elicit, I guess, emotions from me. They say they do that too. So everything she asked me was something like, "What would you do with a coworker that you couldn't get along with?" And I said, "Well, I'd try to talk it out. If I couldn't talk it out, I'd just keep my distance, so I'd just not get in any trouble." And then she says, "My mom and dad don't treat me very good." And she put her head down. She started crying, and it was a fake cry. I can tell a fake cry when I see one. And she had like tears, and she was kind of like sobbing. I put my hand on top of her hand. And I said, "That's okay." And when I did, her hand was so hot, I pulled it away, and I said, "You're sick. There's something wrong with you." I said, "It's cool outside. You're burning up with a fever." She looked at me. She had these real dark eyes. I guess you can call like the black-eyed kids or whatever. But she looked at me with that stare, and I just felt it burning the back of my head. I had to turn away. I said, "Hiroko, don't look at me like that." I said, "Your eyes are so intense." I said, "I thought I had intense eyes." I said, "My goodness." I said, "You can see right through me." She didn't say nothing. And then I asked her, I said, "Well, how old are you?" And she got kind of, I guess, a little short with me. She looked at me. She said, "Why does everybody ask about age?" She said, "There is no age. There is no age." I said, "Yes, there is." And I said, "I'm not going to argue with you." And So every time, and I brought up UFOs, and every time I mentioned them, she kind of looked at me kind of funny and didn't say nothing. But she couldn't read English, but she said she spoke 21 languages. And I took about 3 pages of notes when I got back to my lodge room after meeting her that night. We met the next day for breakfast. She was a little late, and I asked her about credit card. I said, "Did you check out of your room?" She goes, "Yeah." I said, "Did you have a credit card that you used?" I said, "You should call them saying you're checking out. They may charge you for another day." And she didn't know how to do all that. And she said she just ate bread at the hotel room or whatever. And I heard that a lot of hybrids, they don't eat a lot of meats like we do or anything like that. But she did eat egg and stuff for breakfast the next morning that I was with her. And then she left, and then I made my notes, and I thought, okay, fine. But 6 months later, March 17th, on St. Patrick's Day, my cousin and I was both sitting on my front porch, smoking cigars, taking it easy. It was really nice that day, about 72 degrees for Illinois. That's great. And so we saw three people walking towards us from the road. It was about 200 feet away at that point. And then they walked in closer, but they was about 150 feet away. And the gal turned around and held her arms just like Hiroko did, but she didn't look at me. And the 2 young guys, one 15, maybe 16, the other one 17, 18, they walked up to us on the porch. It's about 10 feet away from us. They acted kind of funny. And the only question they asked me was, where was the new Walmart? And I said, it's right over that viaduct. And they said, okay. And that was the last words I said. My cousin, who is a big talker, I mean, he just rattles on and on and on. But he was quiet. They had him dumbed down. They use magnetic energy to dumb you down, and you can feel it. You can just feel like your head is numb. Everything's fine. It's like you've had about 5 or 6 highballs, and you're just sitting there mellow, and that's how it makes you feel. And then you don't say nothing, because it was on the tip of my tongue. I wanted to ask him, is that Hiroko down over there, in the road? And I wanted to ask that, but I couldn't. And then one of them apparently went in my house. I didn't see or hear of them going in my house. I was sitting there right there in front of the front door. They come out with my brown satchel. My brown satchel had my UFO notes in it, and actually notes from meeting with her. And so this young guy opened it up and looked in it, and he looked at me. It was like, okay, what's going on? And he reached in it, but I didn't see what he was doing. I thought he was manipulating us with some kind of a little flashlight looking thing, and it wasn't, but it was actually my brown satchel. I didn't figure that out for a few days later, that he went in the house and picked that up and showed me what he was looking at. And then they walked away. And when they walked away, I noticed them when they got to the street right in front of me, and then they walked and they met up with this lady. And my cousin didn't see them up to that point. He says, where are they at? I said, they're up there now. They're with the Hiroko, I called her. And then they walked to the stop sign about 50 feet away. And then we were talking, we looked, and they were gone, just disappeared. We looked up and down the road, and they were nowhere to be found. They would have been walking up or down the road if they were on foot. So they just vanished. And my cousin got up, and he's not used to this stuff. He's about as shallow as a dry creek bed when it comes to UFOs and paranormal. So he got up, and he was pale white. He said, what the hell just happened? And I said, I can tell you later when you settle down. It's got something to do with ETs. He said, oh my God. He said, I'm getting out of here. He got in his truck and just took off. And his wife told me the next day that he was scared to death. She asked me what happened, and I told her, so yeah, that's the follow-up fact that I'm talking about, Angel, that when something happens and then you get some follow-up that occurs, that's when you can say, yes, that happened.
Yeah, so, no kidding. And you have, not only yourself, you have family members and others as witnesses, which is funny. He was scared and left. That, that's, I think, a form that most people would react in that way. That's why I think the disclosure is coming in driblets and small drops and soft disclosure, as I've called it here on the show before, because the average individual might not be 100% ready to, discover the fact that we're not alone.
That's right.
We've never been alone. And that we might be the product of somebody else. Maybe not a spiritual God made us. Maybe there is one that made the entire universe. But maybe we were manipulated and created by some kind of alien race. Which, by the way, Dave, like I said, we're going to go off in a few minutes here because I know you've extended. But one thing I always get into when I talk, about, this subject with everybody, and I wanted to get your opinion on this. To me, no matter what, you describe your religious background is or what your belief is, no matter what your subject is when it comes to the big G, God, or the smaller G's, which would be the aliens that might have manipulated us along the way and played God, like we're playing God now with technology and maybe artificial intelligence. That's a form of us playing God. We're creating an artificial life. Maybe that's what we are. We're a form of artificial beings that are hosting these other light minds, and that's what our soul is, and that's part of the programming, and we're continuing our initial creators form of doing things by creating our own beings in our image and our likeness. So we create robots that look like us, for example. But these same beings that might be interacting with us, I think, are giving us that path towards that. And it goes back to now, well, let me ask the question. If you're coming from this dimension from far away or anywhere else, it would make perfect sense to create something like that, whereas something that can travel through space and time or dimensions or whatever, and get to certain places. That's why they travel in these crafts and whatnot. But it's amazing that they enter and exit space like they do at such an amazing rapid rate, where a human body couldn't, do that unless there's something else that's controlling it. In that, I think, is the overall aspect. I think there is more to everything, and it's not only consciousness, but we might actually be living in a matrix type of environment. That's a very big possibility.
Right. I ran into my double out in New Mexico. That's another story, and I have proof from several people who saw my double and chewed me out. I might be able to get into that some other time. But talking about prayers and God, I start off my prayers like saying this. I said, Lord, Creator, God of gods. I've learned how to say that, God of gods. So the ultimate God, the source of all life and all energy, that's the God of gods. You just mentioned we called ETs gods thousands of years ago, but they're not God. There is a God. Yeah. So that's how I do my prayers now. It changed my whole context for praying.
Yeah, no, that's why I say the big G compared to the little G's, they play God like we're doing now, and I think that's one of the big lessons we learn when we die is we realize that maybe we take the VR goggles off when we pass away, and next thing you know we're actually in a different realm, and that's where we start from, and then we go back. I'm a big believer in reincarnation and things like that as well. And I think all that is relative because we're kind of like playing an endless game, I believe, and that's part of the equation also. I think that might one day become aware of that we're kind of like in another dimension of the realm. Maybe in this body that we inhabit now, it's just part of a game that we're playing. And that's what releases the body when we die. Because it is scientifically proven when you die, there is energy that escapes the body. There is an actual weight that leaves the body at the moment of death.
Right.
So,
and that's at a higher frequency where it can just go. Yeah, I've heard scientists say that out of London there was a scientist, I forgot his name, he was Asian, but he said aliens are invisible. And also heard just here lately that the brain can be controlled by light frequencies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I was actually, I found how they erased my mind, but they didn't erase it all when I was out in Sedona with this hybrid alien, whatever. But I was in my room and they were walking me back and forth, and they were taking this small light, it looked like a tube, and it was really bright. It hurt my eyes. Somebody held me by the arm while the other person our entity was holding that light against my eyes and my face. They were erasing me, and that's how they did it, with the light frequency. So they know how to manipulate light frequency, in which can control the brain or whatever. And that's the same night I kicked away a brown tube from my groin. And Hiroko, the hybrid, told me that she had to have a baby. She told me that in a conversation the night before, and apparently she got her baby, or my semen, that next day. So, or that same night, because I had a regressed dream. I went back to the room, took pictures, and I asked the guy for the same exact room, and I did, and I walked back and forth, took pictures, and when I saw the pictures, it dawned on me that was the path that I was walking. I was walking to the patio doors, and somebody was sitting at the little table, and there was two people or two entities. They were holding a light in my face and walking me. I guess they had to walk me at the same time they did the light thing. I don't know why that is. Maybe they had to have your blood pumping to your brain as you walked, and they did the light frequency to erase things. But they didn't get it all. Too bad.
And I'm gonna give you one final question, and it hits right to where exactly you're talking about Oroku and the Japanese-looking alien. This is something that I've often asked, not only myself but guests on the show. We have such a diverse planet where we have Asians, Indian Asian, Asiatic Asians, Nordic-looking folks, black folks, Indian-looking folks, and we're all on this planet together, and we're all human beings, but we all share this one thing is, we all have differences that are, very extreme between the races. Now, is it possible, do you think, that maybe, since I, personally believe we're quarantined on this planet, do you think that there could be a chance that out there, what happened was that, maybe a certain, governmental ET race, let's call them, Starfleet or something like that, sent to Earth, some of the worst of, that are out there, some of the biggest criminals in space, and said, we're going to put you on this planet kind of like we did to the Australians, or the Europeans did to the Australians a long time ago, and said, you're going to share this planet, and when you start acting right, then we'll let you come out into the cosmos, and then we'll start, allowing you to take part in what, is reality. But for now, you folks are kind of troubled, so you're going to quarantine for maybe several million years or whatever until you're deemed ready. I think, to me anyway, that's a theory I've always held on to, as it would explain the certain differences in people, because I never really hold on to the notion the Bible says, God made Adam and Eve created Cain and Abel, two brothers, one killed the other. How did they make babies? If only Adam and Eve was created. I'm sure Cain was then hitting up his mom every 9-10 months to have a baby. That's disgusting to think of, but I'm pretty sure that didn't happen. And if you went to the lore, once the Adam and Eve were kicked out of the garden, and they went on their way, they found a city, Gomorrah, I believe, is the name of the Bible. If I'm not mistaken, I might be mistaken on the name, but they found
Sodom
a city.
and Gomorrah,
Correct.
That's not the city they found back in the time of Eden, with Adam and Eve and the two sons. The one son killed the other, and he went to another city. And the Bible at that point doesn't really make sense in a way, because
how is there a city there?
They're supposed to be the only human beings, and the one son that survived, apparently he mated with his mother. I mean, that's to me, I don't like that story. But I think what happens is that the son went to another city, another town, and so how could they be the only people?
Right.
It's a contradiction in a way.
Yeah, no, completely, it is. And by the way, and I'm going to say something that's probably going to make you laugh a little bit. If you think about it, son and his mother, how are they going to populate, father, mother, son, mother, how are they going to populate all the millions of people we have here with all the diversity? And for everything we have, I'm talking about millions and millions of people, very few retarded people compared to all the inbreeding that you're talking about, if that's the case. So I don't buy that part of the Bible. I do think Adam and Eve, the Adamski or the Eden or whatever, the version you want to believe from back in the day, might have been an actual tale of an alien race that were genetically manipulating man at that time. And the Adam and Eve story is one of the many Adam and Eve stories that that happened at that time. It was just the one that we captured and put into story form. But when you look into the entire story, the storyline, it makes no sense. Like you said, it doesn't jive with reality. Okay, who are these people in this town that he encountered?
Yeah.
His kids had, he had kids after
Noah's Ark.
Yeah, no,
they put all the animals on there. I think it was DNA.
Yeah, no, that makes sense compared to, creating an ark where you could fit in polar bears and tigers and pandas. We know how pesky pandas are. What kind of food are you going to put in there for them, that makes no sense. But you create a ship with DNA samples, and that is where you bring everything back from whatever disaster you might have, which every Bible in the world talks about a great flood, right? Well, maybe that's how they did it.
Yep. There's a lot of questions we still have to get answered, and I think we're getting those answers. I think a lot of these things were metaphors.
Yeah.
Like telling stories, but they didn't really know the real in-depth scientific DNA facts back in those days. So they had to do some kind of I guess, parallel little story to make people understand that, okay, this is what happened to Adam and Eve, but it was actually DNA and this type of thing. Noah's Ark, not all the animals, just DNA samples from everything. But how would you hop around and get all those DNA samples from all over the world?
Actually, funny enough, I don't know if you've ever seen this movie. Have you seen it's an animated movie. It's called Titan AE.
No.
No? Okay, I highly recommend it. It stands for Titan After Earth. And the whole premise is that Earth created a UFO-looking thing. It's like kind of almost like a Death Star, spherical object that it has in it all the records of every single DNA on the planet Earth. For the catastrophe that is coming after Earth is destroyed, they could set up, this world in another part of the universe that has the Goldilocks zone, where we can go ahead and create life like we know here on Earth. It's a brilliant cartoon. I mean, it's an animated movie to do amazing at the box office or anything, but the premise is just brilliant, and it goes back to that story that we could do something like that. That could have been Noah's Ark, and that could be the premise. Right. I always say the cartoons and movies kind of lead us in the direction of stuff that these people know, and they kind of give us driblets of information. Like, that to me would be something that if you want to disclose where we came from, well, let's put it in cartoon form so they can kind of get that information on their head now. So if that's the reality we're one day told, it's not as far-fetched or as alien to us as a concept as, well, okay, that makes sense. And you could start to rationalize what, we were talking about with the Bible as, not so much misinformation, just information told in the viewpoint of the way they can describe it at that moment in time, when in reality is all technology based, and this is really what it was. This is what Noah's Ark was. This is, the reality that we're living in. And Earth could be an Earth too. We could have come from somewhere else. We could be quarantined here. There could be all kind of possibilities. That could be Noah's Ark. We could have come from Mars, and Noah's Ark could have been the way we got here to Earth. I mean, that's another possibility.
Yeah.
A lot of folks say we did come from Mars. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, can you imagine who Spielberg might have rubbed elbows with?
Oh, goodness, man.
Yeah.
I mean, Jackie Gleason for a long time in Hollywood had that stigma that he saw a UFO and he was told things. And yeah, as you can imagine, if Hollywood is being brought into the knowledge because they want to indoctrinate the rest of the world with what the reality is and get them ready for a soft disclosure, the best way to do it is through movies, entertainment, and just, slowly coach, reality into the collective consciousness. Because if not, you can warp people and drive people kind of insane. Like the audio clip in the, the 30s or 40s, the War of the Worlds, that proved that. People thought we were getting invaded, and that was a audio drama. And people went to the streets with guns ready to start shooting aliens out of the sky.
Yeah,
and that,
right.
that was a test,
Yeah. Speaking of Jackie Gleason, one of the stories, he's got it in his book, and his wife tells the story. I don't know if she tells it herself or if she's told reporters or it was in his book. I'm not really sure. I never confirmed that. But the story that Jackie Gleason told his wife was that he was friends with Richard Nixon, president. Mm-hmm. And back in 71, before all of this trouble hit the fan, they played golf together. So they were really good friends. So Nixon was in Florida, and I guess Jackie Gleason was there at the same time. They played golf. Right. And he said, Jackie, I'm going to take you to an Air Force base here in Florida. I'm going to show you something. And so he got in a car and drove it. Nixon actually drove the car. Jackie Gleason got in with him. He went to the front gate of this Air Force base, and the guard there looked at him and said, "Yes, sir, Mr. President," and let him in. So he went in, and then he went to this building, and he had to go through several doors and then several security guards. And being the president, he was able to get through with that clearance that he had. So he went into this laboratory where they had a couple of bodies of aliens, and he showed Jackie Gleason. He said, "Do you know what those are?" And Jackie Gleason said, "Are those rubber? What are they?" He said, "No, they're real." He said, "Those are real aliens, Jackie." Yeah. And the story goes that he turned real pale, and it really was a shock to him. And he started heading out the door, and Nixon followed him, and they went back, and he was real quiet when he got back in the car. And he told Nixon, he said, "You shouldn't have showed that to me." He said, "That's shocking." He said, I'll never get over this. And so she said that he never forgot that. It just kind of shocked him, that he saw these aliens. And that's one of the stories that was out. Yeah. Actually, his wife told it. Yeah. You mentioned something about Jackie Gleason seeing a UFO, but the story, as I heard it, it was, I don't know if it's verbal or if it's written in his book. I never did read his book, so I don't know. But his wife told the story about that. So it's interesting.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. And it's funny enough, we bring up Nixon and Jackie Gleason. Nixon, as we all know, had the impeachment stuff that happened to him while he was never impeached. He stepped down before the impeachment happened to him. But funny enough, what are we going through now with Donald Trump? Impeachment, right? The media is hell-bent on destroying this man. And here's the kicker, and I'm going to really blow your mind with this one, Dave. I don't know if you have followed these dots. Like Nixon, okay, who has that history with Jackie Gleason, Donald Trump has his own UFO history. Not only the Space Force, which now he's spoken about creating,
right.
But have you heard of the name John Trump? John J. Trump. Or John G. Trump, sorry.
Wasn't that his dad?
That was his uncle. His dad was Fred Trump Sr. Okay. Now, John Trump worked for the Intelligence Department, CIA, and he was actually one of the key and first people that went into Tesla's office when Nikola Tesla died, and he went through the paperwork that Tesla left behind. Hundreds of pages that he went through, and including, from a lot of sources, schematics and things that Tesla was working on that had a UFO flying saucer shape to it. And now, if you follow the dots here, and this is mind-boggling, and I know that, others have covered it, I don't know if you heard this, but let's do a little timeline. Tesla dies, John G. Trump discovers all the paperwork along with the rest of the intelligence community. They're given to the government. what happens right after that? We have the war ending, right? We have the inheritance of all these Nazi scientists, Werner von Braun and all these folks that come over. And what do they bring with them? All the technologies and stuff that they're working on in secret. And that creates our NASA. But in between that and before that, as soon as they come over here, what happens a few years later? We have Roswell, where Kraft comes, in contact with a rancher who's blown away by it. He goes, gets help. Immediately, they put it on the news as a flying saucer, and then it gets redacted. And it's just a weather balloon. Nothing to see here. To me, Roswell's always been a smoke and mirrors type of operation where we were testing what I believe what Tesla and the Nazis were working on at Roswell, and that's what crashed. Because if you think about technology and especially humans, anytime we create something, what's the first thing we start doing? We test it. And and the Wright brothers know this, they knew this because they're dead now, but the Wright brothers knew this. Technology doesn't always work the first time you try it. You go through trial and error, and sometimes you have crashes, right?
Right.
Now, think about it. If we're working on secret technology,
another name as we're getting involved in names is Bush, President, the elder Bush. His father was on the Majestic 12 list.
Correct. Yeah. And funny enough, these are the folks who have been leading this country for the last 50 years. Bush Senior, and I'm sure Cheney Jr., the Trumps, the Reagans. Reagan being an actor does not give anybody smoke and mirrors, An actor like Jackie Gleason was an actor. Donald Trump, a TV star. I mean, a lot of this stuff is, made as entertainment as well, but in reality, there are connections. When you start, putting connections together, you're like, wait a second, what is Donald Trump's uncle doing? Going through Tesla's UFO files, and now he's talking about a Space Force. What does he know?
Right.
What he's not telling us.
Follow the billionaires also. The billionaires know quite a bit.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah. If you get up into that strata of being so rich, you get into corruption sometimes, like this one guy did here a while back, and Feinstein, and all these rich people. They have a connection, and they have money that buys these connections, and they probably know a lot more than what they say. They're held to secrecy to a certain amount, and actually the billionaires, I don't trust any of them, to tell you the truth.
I don't either until the entire planet is against you. When that happens, there's something there. I think there's some fear that Donald might reveal something that they don't want him to reveal. And that's why you're hearing all these crazy things that probably. I mean, this guy can't take a piss, to be honest with you, without
that's true.
Nancy Pelosi or anybody saying we're going to impeach him. He urinated outside the urinal. We can't have that.
Right. I've never seen a president. I'm 70 years old, Angel. I've never seen a president go through this much. Nixon didn't even really go through this much, only about 6 months, and then he resigned because he knew he's facing impeachment. But he did a criminal act. But here you got Trump, who's doing political. He's stepping on his tie a lot of times, doing political stuff. But he's just a different creature than the other presidents. I mean, he's different. He's got a lot done on one side. On the other side, he tells it like it is, and I think the deep state is afraid of him. And so it's up to everybody to make up their mind what political persuasion they are. I voted both ways. I always voted for the person, not the party. I've always done that. I voted for Obama when he first ran. But I voted Republican since then because I seen the writing on the wall. I mean, I even done some political work back in the 90s for Democrats here in Illinois. So I've been on both sides, and I know what it's about. But the Democratic Party has changed so much, I don't even recognize it anymore. It's just I don't know. So you're hoping that an independent will come in there and say, hey, I'll take care of all this, or some miracle happens that will stop all this stuff.
The sad thing is when you have an actual bright, independent mind that comes forward, the media tears them apart immediately.
Right.
Look at Rand Paul, for example. Rand Paul really, in all actuality, is independent, even though he runs Republican. But he's a little bit liberal, but he's mostly conservative. So he's kind of in the middle. And I think he would make an excellent president, both senior and junior. But you're never going to see that happen because the media won't allow it. It's who they want to be president at this point.
That's true. And it shouldn't
crazy.
be that way.
No, it shouldn't
be that way. Yeah. I guess
it's crazy.
We went into this thing a long time, haven't we?
Oh yeah, definitely. Listen, I know that you put your stuff out there, and your story is amazing. So we definitely want to have you back on the show, very pronto, very soon. Because like I said, the time just flew by, and we had you on for a lot longer than we had spoken about. So thank you for spending the time with us. Now, do you have anything coming up that you want to promote also, by the way?
Not really. I have a few radio things to do next week and 2 or 3 of them in November. So I'm just taking it a step at a time. And I'm going to probably I might even start my own radio program. I have a guy in Washington, D.C. that's been talking to me about and he'll help produce it with the music and the breaks and everything, and I'll do the hosting. So I thought about maybe doing that, but I've been talking to him about that, so I've been busy the last couple of months, so I'm just now getting back on my feet with a lot of this UFO interviews and things.
Well, we'll talk off air, and I'll give you some pointers on how the podcasting stuff happens. Also, it's very simple to do. It's a lot easier. I mean, what you did now, it's pretty much it. The technology has gotten so much better, Dave. It's incredible what you do with very minimal money, and you can get amazing quality sound and stuff. So I highly recommend it. I mean, like I said, your story needs to get out there, more than it is already. And writing a book is a great idea. Doing a documentary, that's a great idea. Podcasting it, that's an excellent idea. Do you have a website that you want to promote, a link or anything that people can go to you?
I really don't. Just your website for now.
There you go.
Yeah.
You can find it as info on angelespino.com for sure.
Okay, I'm not hawking no book yet, so I don't have much to say about trying to commercialize things. So I'll just depend on you and your site. So for now.
Well, sir, thank you so much for spending your couple hours here with us. And out of Illinois, so you're an hour behind me, which is cool. I'm a night owl, so I'll be here podcasting this on the website pretty soon. Folks that are listening in about 20, 30 minutes, will be able to get the download, and I'll send it to you as well. But it's been an honor, really, talking to you and having you on the show. And hopefully, like I said, I hope you can come back real soon and we continue talking, because there's so much more to dig into. And normally I'm a lot more talkative on the show, but you notice I kind of let you go on, because it is a very intriguing story. And again, thank you so much.
I like what you're doing also, Angel, because I get to be philosophical about what's going on. You're opening me up to the back of the stage, as we would say, instead of just having the event told. Then we're opening up thoughts and ideas and philosophical mentions about what's transpired and what has happened. That's great. I like that.
I appreciate that. And like I said, we're definitely going to be in contact off here, and we'll continue to grow, hopefully, our friendship through the next, decade, 20 years, whatever it is we have left on this planet. Hopefully, we can sit one day to say, look, Dave, we saw disclosure actually take place. We know the truth now.
Yeah.
Well, I want to see that in our lifetime.
We're UFO brothers, brother.
There you go, my friend. Guys, thank you so much for listening to us. We've gone way over. Dr. J's coming up next. We're given the go-ahead to continue on with Dave. And again, a fantastic guest. Look him up, Dave Emmons. check his other podcasts that he's been on. It doesn't matter. If I find some that are great, I'll promote it on my website. I don't care if they get hits on YouTube. That's fine with me. Go on them, listen to his story. We're going to have him back on, and it's going to be a fun time when he comes on every time because it's fascinating stuff. So, Dave, thank you again, my friend. And, guys, we'll be back next week with more Inside the Jackal's Head right here on PSN Radio. And stick around, like I said, Dr. J's coming up next. Now, this is Tim Brennan with Enemy. Keep listening. Good night, everybody.
Yeah, good night.